Minor will be here in a few minutes, but I see Tyler, you're on there, but we're going to move you around a little bit. You're going to be second on the agenda. I wanted to move forward with the, since we've got so many members of the town employment in here, we want to move forward with the town of Elkton to talk about the non-sworn personnel collective bargaining. I think there's going to be a few representatives that want to come up, and we want to talk a little bit with you. So whoever is going to be the representatives probably need to have a third chair there. So we got Matt Donnelly, Sabrina Scholl, and Denise Gilmore. All right. So I know that we've had a couple meetings. Last meeting we talked a little bit about it. We didn't have a full staff, and I know Earl is on his way, but we wanted to ask some direct questions if we could to find out where this is going. We had received a request from the one young lady, there she is, request about changing the language in the town charter to allow the non-sworn personnel to be in the language with the sworn personnel. And by doing that, that would basically, it would speed up the process and kind of go from there. But I know the board had some questions and comments, and we wanted to kind of get it out on the table. You know, this is the circle of truth here today. So we want to really to make us a. Hello, Earl.
Hey, how you doing?
Earl was in basketball camp. It's part-time job. Thanks, Earl. So we want to just try to drill down and I guess I have a couple questions. My first question: if we move forward with this, who's going to be answering? How will this benefit the town residents? Help me understand how this would help benefit the town residents. If you.
I'm happy to start with that. For the record, my name is Denise Gilmore. I'm the Legislative Director with AFSCME Council 3. We represent city employees from Hagerstown to Salisbury. I think the biggest benefit with establishing collective bargaining in a city like this is, employees have a say and have that respect. It generally really improves morale a lot. We've seen that recruitment, retention certainly of employees improves where workers feel like they have more of a say. There are plenty of studies, and from our experience, where things like absenteeism can go down, and workers really feel like they have a say at work. And our main goal is always to work with management to see if we can come up with more efficient ways to do things. So we've also plenty of examples where we've been able to save money, around overtime costs, all kinds of things. When we truly work together, the idea is that if you put the folks who do the work, give them a say, and in that work, that we can really come up with the most efficient policy. So we have a wonderful track record with working.
So would the thinking be there'd be a different process to file a grievance? For example, I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, and I should know the handbook better, but I believe that the way it works today is you go to your supervisor, you talk to your supervisor, and then the supervisor, if they can't resolve it, then your request would go. Lou, does it go to you, or does it go?
It goes to HR.
It goes to the department manager, and then it goes to HR?
Yep. Yes.
Where does that fit in?
Go ahead, Matt.
Reflecting back on when law enforcement did this, I believe at the time there was fear that there's a big ugly union coming to help them. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Every time somebody took an extra breath, there was going to be a grievance or a complaint, and it never turned out to be that way. And I can't foresee that with the group of men and women that are either at Public Works or up here in admin, or the handful that are in the police department, I do not see anything that would necessarily have to change in that regard. It's, you bring up that specific area of grievances. I don't think that when we've got collective bargaining in the police department that changes. I believe that there may be grievance in the contract to grieve a contract issue specifically, but all other grievances still remain in place. And Chief Allen, or Roberts, I'm sorry, if you want to chime in on that, I have no problem. I
Yeah,
think I stand correct.
we did not, we don't use that grievance process hardly at all. I don't know that there's ever been a time that we've had to use that. It was a little different, I think, when we started with the police because we have LEOBR, and so for disciplinary matters, we had to go through that process, and so it wasn't necessarily through a union.
Right.
But now we don't have LEOBR, there's a different disciplinary process, and we still haven't had to do that.
So the,
just to follow through on what I said also is, I think we talked about this when we met in June, and that is, there's no intent here by the folks who are trying to push us down the tracks to have a union that's such that only you can hold a shovel and only I can hold a broom, and if you hold a shovel for 5 minutes too long, someone is filing a grievance. We don't want that at all.
Well,
think
can I
there's-
interject before we move forward? I mean, in a nutshell, then what is driving this?
What is driving?
What is driving us to be where we are today?
From talking with a lot of different employees from different departments, not just DPW or admin or wherever we're at, basically what they're wanting, what we are all wanting is a fair, we want to be treated with the same respect, dignity, and fairness that all employees want that. A lot of employees don't feel that they get that fairness.
Fairness in what respect, dear? Or ma'am, I'm sorry.
I think.
I call everybody honey and dear, I'm sorry, I apologize.
I think just the way, what I've heard from people, okay, and got put up here. What I've heard from people is just the way sometimes their direct supervisors speak with them.
Well, that's
What we
not
call them.
fairness, is it? Is that the
It's
fairness?
more respect. It's
Okay.
more respect, but I think they're putting it all together, the dignity treat. No matter which level, whether you're out there in the trenches, you know, trying to find a water leak, or you're picking up leaves or whatever, or you're a policeman or a policewoman, everyone wants to be treated the same.
Right.
And the feeling across the board seems to be that they're not. That you've got people that are up here, and then you've got people up here, and the employees want to be level pretty much.
I don't think you answered their question. I don't know, maybe to her satisfaction, but certainly not mine. To what extent? And we're talking about the administration, we're talking about police department, we're talking about the maintenance group. What is that missing? I don't understand it. Now, when did the police unionize? What date was that?
2006, 7, yeah.
And now this is 2023. And my mind takes me in a circle to say what has happened in 17 years, that there is a difference from then until now. 17 years is a long time. What changed, what transpired along the way to get to this point? I mean, I've been here, she's been here, he's been here, and certainly, I don't think anything has ever crossed the board. And I know a lot of hearsay is that, you know, people are not being treated well, and certainly I myself, for one, I can't speak for others, I would say that I would listen to you, but nobody's ever come across the table to say anything. And certainly this is not a bad situation to be in, the situation we're in now talking about it. But what happened? Why was someone not privy to say to us, or individually as people do? Answer that question.
Before you say anything, because I just want to get this out, and I can say, I can look everybody in the face and tell them that I've always treated everybody with fairness and try to do whatever I can to make the group that you're working with either get the same, if not better. And as far as when you go into the part where HR is involved and all that stuff, that's out of my category. But I just want to clear this, because when she asked the question, how do we get here from this point? This is where I think I heard someone made a comment that because we didn't get that 6% raise, now make sure that I'm clear about this, that this is what was told to me. 6% raise, and we dropped it down to 4% because we knew that you guys was gonna try to unionize. That's a false statement, whoever made that. I'm gonna say that in front of everybody, because I have never heard that. When Rob told us about you guys wanting to unionize, he said he's all for it, and I was here, that one meeting he said it. That was the first I've ever even heard anything about you guys unionizing now. So I'm gonna just make it clear, that's the first I've heard it from that one meeting. So when everybody put either Earl Byron's name and Gibbons' name, I'm telling you, it's a false statement, whoever started that. And I'm using this percentage thing is, we all voted because it was budget time, and when he suggested we go with the 4 because we didn't have it to give at the time, we all voted for it. That's the only change we made, not because you guys are trying to unionize. And if it's going to make you guys better, then I'm all for it, and I'm pretty sure the board's the same way. So I rest my case.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't know about anything else after that.
yeah, I'm really excited actually about this interchange because it's educational for us. And I am neither for or against unions, okay? I am not up here to, I'm just trying to get to the basis of this because, I mean, in 2006, did the police do this because they weren't being treated fairly? Was that the driving force?
In part, yes, it was.
In part?
Yeah,
Okay, I need to know that. That's the stuff I need to know.
Let me answer your question to the best of my ability here.
Okay.
Because I wasn't down there 17 years ago. But from what I've been told, that as the police moved forward with their efforts for collective bargaining, there was a movement in Department of Public Works anyway. I don't know if any of the other civilian staff were involved. But at the time, they were essentially told, no, you're not allowed, and if you do anything to even attempt to unionize, you'll all be fired. No
That
need to
didn't come from the town administrator.
No.
No, I didn't say it did, but
I
it came
hope not,
from,
because
no.
I've always been supportive of the police and public works and everybody else.
Yeah.
And I'm the administrator of the town.
Well, I know who you are, Louis.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, and I'm not
Well, we're not
insinuating that it
doing
was you, it was the former public works director. Okay, so that put the kibosh on any effort by civilians trying to get on board with law enforcement at the time. More recently, I think what has taken place is folks have, and I know we're not supposed to be talking about money, but that's the elephant in the room here, for crying out loud. What the heck else we're gonna be talking about? I know there's other stuff, but bottom line is more recently, I guess folks haven't seen merit increases. It's what they want. They want to get a merit increase every year, every other year or something. They see it happening for folks in law enforcement. And I know there's not necessarily a comparison that can be made job for job. Law enforcement's a completely different animal. We know that. But it doesn't mean that other folks, your other employees can't be subject to merit raises. Now, I know that for a long time, we've kind of kicked this can down the road of an evaluation process, and there can't be merit increases without evaluations, and I guess now maybe we have an evaluation process in place, but that's what this boils down to is folks want to have more than just their skin in the game. They'd like to be able to look and know that if they put in a year's worth of work, labor, whatever their specific job is, whether it's in DPW or up here in the town hall, that they get an evaluation once a year, maybe twice a year, however that would come down. And,
So we've started that, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, just for the record, okay.
We have.
Just jump in very, very briefly, because
Seem to be going.
we've seen this, sorry, this microphone is upset with me already. I think what happens a lot of times is it's rarely, one incident that, motivates a group of employees to unionize. What we've lot of times it can be things that sort of build over time, and I think without focusing on, you know, specific proposals, at the end of the day, what it's about is just being able to sit down with your management and discuss these things in a forum where it's safe, right? It can sometimes feel really daunting to, as an individual, go and try and talk to a supervisor about pay or about a safety concern that you have, right? I think what really is motivating these employees to come together right now is the idea of coming together as a group and trying to push together to improve some of the you know, issues that they're seeing in the department, and doing that in a collaborative way with management before they bubble up to be even larger problems, right? There's a kind of a moderated forum where, you know, union and management can discuss issues before, you know, it arises to become much larger issues. So I think that's probably the root of the motivation, not feeling like you have that, you know, respect to be able to sit down across the table with your management group and really discuss things in a productive way. And that's, you know, something that only a collective bargaining agreement can really solve. And again, we're really thankful that you all are taking the time today to meet here and you know, talk with us on how we can do that.
Any other comments?
Well, I would say that regardless of how this pans out, I think an open conversation, an open line of communication between personnel and management is going to be imperative. You know, it should have been all along, and with it being brought to our attention, I think we need to focus more on that. Can we not implement periodic meetings between management and personnel so that questions and comments can be brought up? Lewis?
One of the things I think, and I join Matt in his thought process here, is that the town has not had merit increases for some time. They have COLA adjustments from time to time, which affects all employees, allows them some benefit in terms of inflationary costs and things. But at the end of an evaluation process, they get a pat on the back, but they don't get any adjustment to their wages, and I think that's what they're looking for. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And I would say in addition, I think it's
that's,
also having
one of the
a
crucial
say,
issues
actually,
here.
right? Like maybe, you know, I think in a negotiating context, right? It's you actually, as an employee group, can come together and decide, you know, do the majority of us want to pursue, you know, that particular proposal, or do we have suggestions for another way to maybe, you know, use very similar money that can also, you know, really help employees. So I think it's both, you know, yes, of course, every worker in America wants more money, right? But I think it's also being able to actually have some, you know, say in how that gets distributed.
Being an hourly paid worker myself, I would say that, to me, when I first saw this step issue that we have here in the town, and that was the number one thing that I didn't really agree with, because if it was to me, I would like to find a way to just start everybody on a certain level, and then their pay raise be increased from there instead of these steps, because that's where I think we all have a big negativity about it, because, I mean, his pay grade, my pay grade, step 1, 2, 3, 4, don't mean diddly to me. It's how much work I'm doing. And that's basically what I think the employees would like to see. They probably wouldn't want to unionize if you gave them a nice chunk of money from the beginning instead of having to work for it. I mean, work up to it. Just for some of y'all's records, I got a 3% raise this year. I worked my butt off 27 years at the company where I'm working at. Some of the new people came in, probably got a bigger raise than me, but I don't know what they're making. They might have got 7 or 8%. I don't care. It's not my money. That's theirs. But the thing is, I said thank you because I had a job. That's all I'm just saying. But the thing is, I'm not at the point where I should be at the company I'm at. But yet, I'm saying to myself, maybe I might be going a year, maybe not. But the thing is, the union part, I have no clue. But if it's something that's going to benefit you guys, I think go for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm concerned too. I mean, I'm not concerned, but I'm curious. Like, if I was an employee, I want to know what are my union dues going to get me? What am I paying you for? I mean, are you going to change my benefits, my health insurance, you gonna pay for all that? Like most unions do, or do they stay under? I don't know, I haven't heard anybody unhappy with, I mean, is there a problem with equipment? That you're a safety concern? I don't know. That's why I said, what is the nutshell? And I think, Matt, you hit it, it's money, isn't it? Is it money?
It is,
Okay.
but there are, you know, hey, there just needs to be an overall, you know, overall, you know,
Communication,
more communication.
an avenue for good communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you look at DPW, some of the equipment's old and outdated, and yeah, but I don't know that unionizing gets you new equipment, because that may still fall under management right. You know,
I just
collective
didn't know.
bargaining,
Okay.
I know I can say this without saying it, but it's both sides. So when you go through true collective bargaining, you know, there's a labor agreement, and then it's determined by both sides what ultimately you can and cannot negotiate. And I think it's actually in the town labor code that health and medical benefits are not negotiable. I believe that was written into the actual labor code. So that's, you know, whether we are happy with health and medical benefits or not, look, it doesn't matter. because
So the
we can't
union dues are
negotiate.
gonna get you a voice.
Sure. I mean, law enforcement has a voice, and law enforcement has the,
I look at
grade
her
step plan.
as their voice.
Sure. Yeah.
She is their voice.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I would,
But a step plan is something that some of us, I think, do like.
Yeah, I mean,
But
look,
we, yeah.
I mean, one of the benefits to having a grade step plan in place is you know what the budget for.
And it comes with an evaluation.
And it comes with an evaluation, and it also shuts down, well, I'm not happy with the raise, I don't like the money I make. Well,
And you also know what you're
if
working
you just negotiated for a 5-year contract where you're gonna get a certain percentage raise during that 5 years, well, you can't go and complain about it, because you negotiated.
No, you can't. And to your benefit, you get it regardless.
And what it shuts down is, come January, every year, well, what if we're gonna give us a raise?
Right.
And I remember back at the police department,
Right.
it would
I
occupy
understand.
everyone's time from January to June or July 1, when we're getting a raise.
What happens when you have two employees at the same level, same grade, step plan, with two evaluations that, and one guy says, damn it, I do 10, I'm sorry, I do 10 times more work than that guy, and he still got the same raise as me. What happens then?
Well, it becomes a management issue as to whether or not is this person who's doing less work, is that by design?
So then
What's their assignment?
So in the union, he doesn't automatically get that?
It all
See,
would
that's what I
depend on how,
If
will
I
all
can-
depend on how
I just-
contract.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure we're not getting, too far
I'm just trying
ahead
to
of this. No,
understand.
I appreciate the questions, and they're good questions. It is important to, only
I think the
management
employee should
hires
know
and
that
fires,
answer.
right? We're having discussions with employers, with the employees. We're thrilled that we're at a super majority, that, folks want this, and, they're eager to work with all of you, and, hopefully getting the, charter amended as quickly as possible. But we are, all of the questions that you ask, they're great questions. They're the kind of questions that you dig into once you have collective bargaining rights and you empower employees to sit across the table with their managers.
You don't answer that
with
question to
them.
those employees before they sign on to the union?
Well,
What they're,
when you go into, the whole point of having, collective bargaining rights is that, as a group, you have the ability to have these discussions and figure out what is the proposal that we want to put forward to management. Conversely, management gets the chance to come to the table and say, these issues are really important with us, and we work it out.
So management can say, okay, these two guys, you're right, this guy isn't working quite as hard as you are, so he's not getting that step up.
I mean,
Is that how it works?
what I would certainly, if that, I'm not gonna, I am not,
You would
the
know.
exclusive bargaining representative at this point, right? But I think that this is something that, again, when you give workers a voice and you give the folks who are doing the job the ability to decide what happens in those situations, and more of a say in that process, you're gonna end up with something that, is going to, help morale for everyone, right? Because everyone's had a say in that process. It's very different than sort of just imposing, different raises for different people that aren't transparent, that people don't understand why this person has received this raise, why that person has received that raise. That's the sort of thing that generally really hurts morale.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
why I'm
is,
asking
you know,
these
this is
questions.
what's-
I feel like I'm advocating for them.
I mean, what I heard, my brother Matt say, and I agree with him completely on that specific instance, is, it's not our responsibility to necessarily manage someone. I do think we have to go back in that specific instance to figure out why, some employees are getting away with not doing perhaps everything that's in the job description. That's a management issue.
Yeah,
Not
it's
It is.
supervision and management.
Yes.
Is where that would fall.
Yes.
I used to say in the police department, and I know you do, but you really gotta kind of put forth pretty good effort to not get a raise, because there's plenty of work to be done. And, you show up, I mean, part of everyone's job, I call them 3 Ps, you're present, you're punctual, and you perform. We're not making widgets, so the job changes from day to day, potentially. Right now, people can cut grass, and we're gonna cut grass from April 1st to whenever it stops growing, sometime in late October or November. But there's other jobs that they do throughout the course of the rest of the year. Mechanics do mechanical work, folks who do water and sewer are doing water and sewer work. Much like the law enforcement, there's not an emergency every day of the week, okay, but there's always jobs to be done. And, that clears it up for you or not, but not done it, no.
I can explain to you how we've done it within the police department, if that helps.
Like if you have 2 equal employees.
2 employees at the same level, but they still, and according to the contract, they still have to meet an acceptable level in their job performance in order to get the pay increase. But that has to be documented, and that they did not meet that. And we have, on occasion, had officers who did not get their merit increase because they did not meet the minimum performance standards.
Okay.
I think everyone wants a fair shake, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what you want a fair shake. Doug?
I would just like to add, just personally, and I think we all feel the same way, we're all, most of us have families. Be nice to know what we have, look forward to for the next couple of years. We go years and the wife is like, maybe we can do this, and I'm like, well, I don't know, I haven't heard anything. We don't get reviews, maybe we'll get a cost of living, so we can't plan anything for the future. Even if it is 3 years out, 4 years out, whatever. We have no idea, and that's tough to go home like that.
Yeah, I understand. Listen, as I said, I think it's a great tool for whoever's sitting up here to know what everyone's gonna, you got it laid out, you got a plan. So from my standpoint, it's not really an issue here.
I think a lot of this, I get along with all you guys up on the board. I've talked to all of you and been here for almost 17 years. The union thing was before I got here, right before I got here. A lot of this stems to, you guys we shouldn't have to depend on coming to you to ask you for a raise. We shouldn't have to do that. That's not the board. We had a thing in place where it's called merit raises, where we're supposed to get a raise. I haven't had one since Mark was in charge. It's the last one. So we feel there's a breakdown there. And when there's a breakdown there, we talked about it earlier, you go to your next person to talk to. And I did this year already. Went to my supervisor. He said that he got his part of the stuff done to get the interviews done, to get our merit raise started. I went to his supervisor. he told me where to go because it was in somebody else's hand. So then I go to HR, and I talk to HR, okay? But I talked to the mayor, right out here, prior to that, probably 5 months ago, 6 months ago, when the Step Star was supposed to, and Danny was supposed to be taking care of it. I think there's a lack of that getting taken care of. So that pushes a lot of this because it goes back to the money situation. We don't know what we're going to get. We have to depend on you guys to vote on it, to give us something every year. We shouldn't have to do that. You know, we should fall back on our merit raises. That should be getting taken care of, but it's not getting taken care of. And a lot of us have followed through and tried to talk to everybody and follow the book the way this book is, and it still isn't getting done. So that is a big concern, you know, and it's not pointing fingers at anybody. It's not trying to get anybody in trouble. It's nothing about that. It's about fairness. Let's get it done. If it's written that way, let's do it. Let's get it done. So I think a lot of people feel that the collective bargaining is going to help that because then at least we know where we are for however many years that gets set to be at. You know, I think that's what a lot of people are looking at. You know, because we don't. You know, and it shouldn't be fall back on just the board. It shouldn't fall back on it. That's a management thing. You know, and that's.
Well, you know, I've always said, and I might have even said it at this meeting, that the norm has always been, you know, if you have a circle of inside the town, that's this team, and then the mayor and council, we handle the outside. We work with the residents and those items. So, but we do our best to try to work as a team, and I hear everyone loud and clear. I think we've got. I have one last question. So, if there was 50 non-sworn personnel that have interest, well, I'm going to say, if we have 50 non-sworn personnel in the building or outside the building, how many folks do you think are interested in moving forward with this collective bargaining? Are we looking at 70? Are we looking at 35 out of 50? Or are we looking at 15 out of 50? Is there a number you could give me?
Are we talking outside of DPW?
Yeah, so folks inside, yes. Any non-sworn personnel can be part of this. Anyone but management, is that correct?
Correct.
Your managers cannot be.
And generally part-time.
So we are sharing now a letter that our team has come up with of employees who are already supportive of moving forward. We're excited that we've reached a supermajority in support. The process, the kind of next process here is that they've got to, you know, this fall,
41.
Drop some cards and you know, as a showing of interest, and you know, we just again very much love.
I'd say it's 41 out of 50 or so, right?
Yeah, we've got very strong support.
So this 41 out of 50 are folks who signed on to this letter and wanted to publicly say to their coworkers and to everyone that they support having collective bargaining, they support having a voice in anything from wages, hours, to other terms and conditions of employment. I know we've talked a lot about wages here, we've talked a lot about merit systems, but the issues really range, and this is just from me talking to you guys, right? I've been working with this group for a couple of months now, and it started even before, you know, your budget was finalized, but, you know, anywhere from, you know, trainings to promotional opportunities, to be able to stay at the town for a long time, to safety, right, to equipment. It goes from town hall to DPW, and I know that, you know, y'all have been kind of asking for, you know, bullet points about what happened, but, you know, like my brothers and sisters up here said, it's a culmination of things, and ultimately, folks want to stay here, they want to have a voice here, they want to improve things in a collaborative way with you all, with the commissioners, with their administration, with their managers, so that everyone can, you know, make this town a better place to work and live. And I just want to remind folks, you know, a lot of these employees are residents of the town. Their families live here, their friends live here, and it's really for the benefit of everyone that they're looking to. So these 41 on this paper are folks who are saying publicly those things. There are even more who have signed on to, you know, union cards to be able to express officially their support in getting their union recognized. That can only happen after, they receive collective bargaining rights.
Very good. Does anyone from the board have any other questions or comments?
So you have, I'm assuming,
Yes, sir.
you have broken down to these 43 or whatever, or the employees, the negatives and the positives of this, of the unions, right? I mean, I'm asking because I don't know, and I just want to make sure that they're clear what they're getting into. That's what I'm saying. Give them all the details they need, the negative and the positive, so that they can move forward if they want to with it. I just want to make sure that they have all the tools, not just the good part.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll leave it to you all to answer that question.
I'm just.
But we've had many, yes, sir, and I think that ultimately, within your union, transparency is as important as it is with management and employees, right? Everyone needs to know the pros and cons of everything, and I think we've had multiple discussions about both. And ultimately, after those discussions, or when folks, have written this letter together and signed the letter, and are wanting to move forward.
So if a merit plan were to be adopted and put into place, with evaluations done, and nothing else changes, as nothing else will change, probably, you still want to move forward with you, is what I need to know, personally.
So there'll be a process where these employees can, after they have the bargaining rights, where they can certify it, and that happens through, oftentimes they're showing up, cards, actual cards, but nobody is coercing them into
Oh, no,
joining the
I know
union.
that. I'm just saying, if
They've
you can
organized on their own, and they are.
I know that.
They've made it.
It's fine, I think they're being very, I understand completely. If I was an employee, I'd be looking into this, but I wouldn't do it with both eyes open. And I was just curious if, like I said, if the evaluation process was in place, if the merit plan, step salary was in place, hypothetically, and nothing else changed. Management didn't change. Everything stayed the same. Would they still be happy?
So the really empowering thing about being in a union is that you have a voice within your union. You have
But the
a
voice
on
isn't
contract.
gonna hire isn't gonna fire their manager.
But but your voice can tell you if you're gonna vote to approve a contract or not. There's a voice on voting for your local leadership. I mean, it really is, we function like a democratic organization, just like, many democratic
So they're all-
organizations. So
okay,
we've
okay.
got, there are a lot, I don't wanna put, the cart
I
before
got
the
it.
horse. We've
I
gotta
get
get
it.
collective bargaining first, but should we get down the line and, if your concern is that employees are then somehow gonna be stuck in this process, they're not, they've got.
No, I'm just
full
wondering
voice.
if they're gonna be content. This is the way
Yeah,
they need to go.
I say this, if the collective bargaining is approved and we sign a contract, you better believe people are gonna be happy, whether they're happy or not. Because
That
you
makes
asked for it,
sense to me.
you got it, careful what you ask for. Collective bargaining will bring about different types of, changes that, as I said before, management still has management rights. And whatever is
I'd
open
rather-
for negotiation, okay, we negotiate a pay scale or something. We're gonna have to be, we're gonna have to be.
Yeah, they will.
And
They will
nobody's
have to
looking.
be. As long as we go through this as a team,
And I don't think anybody's looking to change management. That's a dangerous path to go down, to allow your union to
Well, that's what I
change
mean.
the
I-
management or any employee group at all,
Right.
necessarily. Because when does that ever end?
I know, my question that was, if nothing else changed, will we still be happy? They gotta pay their dues for something.
But if I can
So-
just the mere ability to be able to sit down and negotiate a contract is
Well,
a
you're talking about contract.
huge change
Okay, you're talking
from
about
what's happening
contracts.
currently. So it's just not quite right to say that nothing changes when
Well-
collective bargaining, like just the ability to sit down as a collective group to negotiate over your wages and working conditions. That in and of itself is a huge change from what's
That's
happening
it.
currently.
That's it in a nutshell.
That's a pretty big change.
That's it, because they're not gonna really have the right, like Matt said, to negotiate, I don't like my boss, I don't like my manager. He's making my life, I'm not happy.
But you can negotiate, protections around, you can negotiate protections
Well,
to
there's
make
already
sure that
protections.
around health and safety, around training that's good, that everybody receives. We've negotiated
Okay.
bullying policies in some areas, like there are all kinds of things that you can, if it's identified as a problem that both sides, agree they want to work on.
Okay.
The ability to sit down and discuss these issues in a forum that actually leads to results, that is the big change in establishing collective bargaining. So, I do think most employees are happy once they get that first contract, and, we certainly hope that the city employees here in Elkton can experience that.
And what, hypothetically, if they're not happy, what are they locked into with the union?
We can't force membership, no one's forced to.
I mean,
to
can
be
they
a
say,
member.
we don't wanna continue this partnership, or we don't wanna be in the union anymore?
If they get down that road, that is a process that is established in law that they can, certainly pursue. I will say that, again, we represent, city employees from Hagerstown to Salisbury. They tend to be very happy once they get the pass.
So, what's the process? Other than
Thank
being
you.
happy?
One of the processes that we would take is hopefully amending the city charter. The city charter already allows for
No,
the
you're
charter.
wrong, no, sorry, didn't Let's just drop
Did I
this train
misunderstand
of
the
thought,
question?
because you're not answering my question. And I think we've got I personally understand a lot more than I did when I first sat down at 12 o'clock. And I appreciate that they're all here, because this is invaluable to me as a town commissioner. And I'm sure all of us are extremely interested in hearing from you. So, we have a lot to absorb here.
I know Rob went out to the restroom, but after listening to all that has been said, my own personal opinion, I can understand you're wanting a financial package as a part of other things you want. Basically, you don't have many issues, but it's the finance, and as the gentleman back there said, I can appreciate his statement, because when I started out work, I started out as a teacher, but in year one, I knew what I was going to be making in year 7. And if I made it to year 7, I knew what I was going to be making in year 13. So I had an idea. But as he was saying back there, and I guess a lot of you believe him as well as I do, you don't know what you're going to be making from year to year. So basically, you want something in a document after negotiations to say we can come up with a package like this, and then you have some idea. I know when I first came on the board here, about some 20 years ago, we never had a financial structure for the workers. I think Jim Krause was the mayor at the time, and we were using something that was sent to us from the University of Maryland that they worked on down there. That didn't work. Then we came up with another effort with dealing with another school to come up with that. That didn't work. And then oftentimes we had some of your bosses that would come in here and actually say that, my worker is doing well, he's getting ready to leave. Is there anything we can do to keep him there? And sometimes we bent the rule a little bit and made that happen. So I can understand somewhat of what you're asking for, and hopefully with us and with you and fair labor practice, we can come up with something to satisfy everyone. You're not going to satisfy everyone, but at least make it better to know what you're going to get the next year. And as far as the evaluation goes, and we ourselves have tried to administration to come with evaluations. We have not had a great deal of that over the past 5 years. I think they have done a great job at this point coming up with evaluations. Most of you should have an evaluation before you leave here. But then after you get an evaluation, what happens then? Does that mean a pay increase? you know, there's a lot of ifs and ands about it, but at least it's to the point now, I think we understand some things better. Mayor, back to you.
Well, listen, I think we've heard enough. Thank you. I think the next steps are, this board's gonna have to either make a decision that we're gonna change the charter to allow that language to move forward, or you're gonna have to we're gonna make a decision that you're gonna go out and get signatures and then be voted on by the public. You'll have that answer very, very shortly. I can comment. Andy?
Mayor, may I make a couple comments, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say to everyone here, I'm in agreement with what they're requesting as far as definite merit, as Commissioner Gibbons mentioned. So I totally support what you're doing. I do understand about the respect comments. I do think too that it's both ways. As far as Denise Gilmore and her comment as far as recruitment and retention, I will say that recruitment's not a problem, retention's not a problem. We have plenty of people waiting in the wings to want a job here, we just don't have the jobs. But that being said, the merit comments and a definitive is probably, in my opinion, the biggest issue. Denise, are you a paid employee
I am.
by the union?
Yes, I am.
And this young lady here, is she paid as well?
I am.
Okay, so you actually represent a business and your goal is, I'm sure, to help them, but it is a business to make money. The union is a business to make money. So I just want to make sure that's,
Actually, like, sorry.
go ahead, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
I mean, we function more like a nonprofit business.
But you do get paid.
We work on behalf of our members.
But you do get
Pool
paid.
their resources.
I
You do get
think,
paid.
I think we're going a little bit further than we need to
Okay, I'm sorry.
right now.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I'm telling you right now, I'm completely lost with what you're asking, and we need to get with council
Yes.
to figure out where we're going with this charter,
Yes.
and then we're gonna go and deal with the comments that you guys have made, and that, I really don't want to.
My apologies, my apologies. Thank you.
Yeah, Matt, in closing?
Just
Okay.
two things. One is, in my time, back in 2007, at the FBI National Academy, I took a management course, and one of the things we talked about was employee union groups, and then specifically in law enforcement. But one of the general undertones was, when your group gets to this point, there's something else wrong. You know, there's what's happening, and that, you know, you may have to ask that of yourself.
Understand.
So, you know, if your yard is 40-some employees and some more waiting in the wings, you know, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just saying that when you get to this point, what is happening?
Understand.
I'd like to have a closing remark to
Thank you
that.
for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Not only the Elkton Police Department, the Public Works, the administration, building, everyone, they're all critically important to the safety and welfare of the community. So there's no anybody current here that doesn't appreciate all the services these people do for the town of Elkton. Let me tell you that right now.
Well, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
My question is, if, I heard you say something that not everybody has to join this. What happens when someone doesn't join this?
They're, they're just a non-member at that point.
Would you pull that mic to your mouth?
I
It's, I don't know if you can
I
hear
can
me.
definitely put that to the mic. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
They're a non-member in that point, but I know as you all are debating, the relative benefits to amending the charter or taking this to a referendum, something I would just have you all consider is, the referendum process can just, as you know, can just take a very long time. And it leads to, an unnecessary delay, I think, to getting where, we want to be. Many of these employees have been, working on this for, some time now. We're at a place now where we've got tremendous support for these efforts. There's an effective and efficient way that you all can engage that other towns have, engaged in terms of getting collective bargaining established for their workers. That still allows for plenty of public input, public notice, So we would certainly hope and that you strongly consider the charter amendment path here, so that we can go ahead and start this great work of working together, as the wishes of your employees. But again, we really appreciate this thoughtful conversation and discussion. And I'm certainly happy to leave my information. If you have more questions that come up in the process of this, I certainly hope to be able to make myself available for all of it. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to get these folks who work incredibly hard and live here, the collective bargaining rights that they deserve, and we really appreciate you being partners with us on that.
Thank you guys for your time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We'll give the room a second to, and I know we got Tyler Annenberg is on the Zoom meeting.
He works on there.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you Dover? Yeah, Matthew Rodriguez, he's one that's living here. He works on the Colts. Okay, I work with Colton all the time. Oh, yeah? Nice meeting you.
Tyler, I thought you were up there on the screen there.
Backyard.
I'm there looking, I'm saying, what's Tyler on the screen?
Well, I got a,
Got to jump it.
Darn right.
We did this one, so,
Is that Baker's?
No, this is a different Tyler.
Oh, because I think you know what
that's what happened. Figure out your questions, so thank you.
Yeah.
Tyler, was it you I was talking to outside of the tent at the golf?
Yeah, I was at Tours and Tots this Monday, expecting a few of you guys to be present, didn't catch anybody there.
Yeah, my family was represented.
Okay, all that's
Okay, the non-golfer here.
Okay, Tyler is here, and Tyler's going to talk about Enterprise Fleet Services. I had just to recap a little bit, I had a discussion with Tyler about some of the things that the county government is currently doing. The current county government has turned their fleet over to Enterprise. They're not purchasing capital equipment, they're allowing Enterprise to do it, and I thought it was well worth our while to for all of us to have a little bit better understanding of how this program would work if we go down this road.
Absolutely. So let me move this a little closer. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for taking the time today. I greatly appreciate it. Just a brief introduction for myself. I'm actually born and raised in Elkton, so this deal and opportunity is very, very important to me. So I want to make sure you guys are taken care of. It's the first time I've been able to say that in the multitude of towns, municipalities, counties, and universities that we work with. So this is home to me. So I greatly appreciate that. And of course, with respect for your guys' time today, I know I have about 10 minutes to go through this relatively fast. It's a little bit more material than 10 minutes allots for. So we're going to keep this relatively high level, of course. If you have any questions or concerns or remarks, please feel free to stop me at any point. So I will be talking relatively fast and moving through this. We're really just out here today to...
And who do you have with you?
My name is Michael Fitzpatrick. I'm the area manager for our Baltimore area and Eastern Shore on the Enterprise Fleet Management. I'm here to run his PowerPoint today. So
All right, perfect. All right.
just as an assistant.
Okay.
He's my assistant today. But our goal today, too, is just to see if this is a possible, viable option for you guys. We're definitely in the early stages, very exploratory at this point, just to see if this is potentially something that we can get permission to formalize and make something a little bit closer to what you guys need. We put this up here because, nobody in the government space wants to be first or last to anything, right? These are a couple of our current local government partnerships, and of course, this is in no way to brag or boast of any sort, but more or less to offer you guys a reference point. As Mayor All already said, Cecil County is already a partner of ours. They got started approximately early last year. So we're still early stage with them as well, but so far so good. And then of course, if you guys know anybody at these other locations, we also have Harry Grace and Perryville, which are all relatively close by, a lot of counties, towns, and Eastern Shore as well. We are actually already vetted by the Sourcewell Cooperative as well. We're the preferred fleet management source, so we can utilize Sourcewell in the bidding and purchasing process. So you will be getting the same buys as, you know, larger entities like Johns Hopkins, for example. A couple of our key objectives, and thank you guys for sharing with me the fleet.
Did you get everything you needed?
I did.
Thank you.
So that was very helpful. A couple key objectives that we saw some opportunities, and we'll do a little bit deeper of a dive into the actual fleet profile as well. But a couple of our goals for the town of Elkton would be to actually reduce the overall age of the fleet. The current age is about 8.3 years for the 2015 model year. 46 of the 85 vehicles that we pulled to our fleet profile are actually 2015 years or older. We will be looking to also reduce operational downtime and expenses. Also look for a way of maintaining a manageable vehicle budget. Based off the 5 years of purchase history, you guys are averaging about 8 vehicles per year. Or you're on a 10.63-year replacement. We have to tighten that up a little bit and just make that more manageable so you guys are paying year to year. And then also look for ways to increase efficiency, sustainability, and safety, right? Cost is very, important. So is the safety of the employees that are out driving vehicles. And our goal would be get that to pretty much a closer to 4 to 5 year replacement plan, just ensure more safety and sustainability as a top priority. Some conservative savings as well. The 10-year model actually yielded about a $373,019 savings. So based off what you guys are currently operating today, what our kind of recommended proposal, if you will, like I said, it's a very rough draft in an early stage, but yielded about $373,000 savings.
And that would be keeping the vehicles how long?
4 to 5 years would be the ideal cycle parameter for you guys based off the mileage. And that actually leads me to this next slide as well, which is the fleet profile. The average annual actually came out to about 6,600, which is actually amazing. It's very low mileage, and why is that amazing? Because they're reselling these vehicles. At the end of these terms, we'll actually practically plan the replacement, so that replacement is showing up, and then we'll sell that prior vehicle on behalf of the town and maximize that equity back. So having that low annual mileage is actually going to be key to driving resale numbers much higher. Like I said, the average age was about 8.3. You guys had about 25 vehicles over 10 years of age, which are probably the problem children. Some vehicles we'd like to move quickly with replacing, and then we also identified 3 underutilized vehicles. The underutilized vehicles is just basically any vehicle that's annual mileage is under 1,000, probably kept around with spares. But as we get a newer, fresher, more efficient fleet, there shouldn't be as much of a need for those spare vehicles.
And how many of those did you say we had?
3.
3.
So not a big deal, but there are still a couple opportunities there where we could sell those vehicles on behalf of the town and then throw that equity. Yes.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I saw a hand
No,
up.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I put my hands down here.
You're okay.
So Tyler, this would work like a regular lease for somebody, right? You put down a substantial amount in the beginning, and then you begin the lease payments.
So from the funding standpoint, it is solely based on how the town wants to operate. We work within the budget to make sure it's customized to the town. A lot of our towns do about 0% down, and then take advantage of what we call an equity lease, which is unique to enterprise, where we'll actually establish a reduced book value based off the cycle term for that vehicle. So just as a rough estimate, and this might not apply to any vehicles, but if we get a pickup truck for $50,000, and we know we're going to sell that vehicle on behalf of the town in 5 years, and it's going to get at least $10,000. We would only have the town finance or lease that $40,000, saving a little bit on the cash flow side of things too, because we're not financing all the way down to 0. So it's a way to allow the town to kind of replace more with less budget as well.
I do want to add too that the resale comes back to the town, so it's it won't be like a traditional dealership place. It's truly some of our finance folks call it market value finance. There's no over mileage charges, there's no wear and tear. We just want to make sure we're depreciating the vehicles appropriately to the usage to minimize cash flow and obviously sell vehicles at the right time to lower total cost of ownership.
That answer it, Commissioner?
Yes, thank you.
And then something else I just want to draw attention to is the replacement criteria. So again, this is just basically a rough sketch of what we can do to illustrate the 10-year model. But we took into consideration, first year, getting rid of any vehicle that's 10 years or older or an odometer over 100,000. There is mathematical reason behind that, of course, as well. And then just kind of stair-stepping from that point on until hopefully in 5 years being fully implemented under the program of enterprise. This was the fleet analysis that yielded the $373,000 in savings. We took in a couple assumptions into consideration on this analysis as well, based off of our current clientele that operates similarly with similar fleet mix, similar mileage patterns, and as well as our own historical data. Enterprise as a whole owns and operates about 2.2 to 2.5 million cars annually. We buy 1.3 million cars annually as well, being the largest purchaser in North America. So a lot of this data is driven from our own operating fleet, but also entities that we already work with currently that we know the numbers for. Annual needs. So basically, covered everything and took the average based off your 5-year history and compared everything in this gold bar. We don't have a lot of time to dig deep into this today, but just again to illustrate the concept. Largely, what we're talking about is a partnership, and a lot of that partnership is going to consist of multiple consultations, multiple conversations, in which we dig down and see which vehicles actually need to be replaced and form that around the budget that is allocated towards this. So this should just illustrate that we have the opportunity to show 10-year savings, but even in a worst case scenario, if we come in at cost neutral, and we're talking about operating a newer, fresher, more efficient fleet, what it does for the town's image. You guys just had a big meeting about employee retention, employee happiness, right? Newer, fresher fleet, and it's going to come in about the same as you're already currently paying out. Would you rather live in that world or live in a world where you're operating an older fleet that might have more downtime and more increased risk?
So just to sum that little bit up, let's put away the savings altogether and put that to the back burner. It doesn't cost us any more, and we could have a new fleet about every 5 years.
Correct. Yeah. As well as, in this space, Enterprise has become a subject matter expert as it relates to fleet management services and the automotive industry as a whole. You have us to keep an eye on the fleet and make the proper recommendations at the right times and make sure that, the town is operating at a high level and as efficiently as possible. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. One thing I did want to draw attention to as well, Enterprise, if you've ever rented a vehicle or dealt with us in the past, we're very customer service oriented. And in the government space as a whole, we actually have a 99% retention rate across the U.S. It's actually our quickest growing segment as well, and it's largely due to our infrastructure and our people and the fact that we're customer service oriented. So we're actually here to help and be there for the town at all steps. So again, the goal today was just to show a very high-level overview of the services that we provide and provide to a multitude of other entities in the government sector. And really, we're just looking for permission to have continued discussions and get a more formalized plan to present.
Tyler, how does I do have a question.
Yes.
How does the insurance work?
So a lot of the towns are self-insured, as well as we do work in the commercial space as well. We do offer risk management services, but every service that we offer is kind of like a la carte. So whatever is going to be the most beneficial, we can present, and then the decision can be made from there.
I mean, we have to have liability insurance.
Can I interject? I already called legit. Not a big difference in cost for coverage. They will cover the vehicles.
They cover the
comments from the board? Listen, guys, thank you, and let us digest this. I like what you brought to the table.
Thank you.
I think it just takes us up another level.
Could I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
With these fleet cars, they include police cars? How are the police cars outfitted? Right now, they have to be, there's a lot of equipment in the police car when it goes out and comes back in. It has to be outfitted. How's that done? Through Enterprise?
However you prefer to have we classify them into the emergency response vehicle category. We can outfit those however you'd like. Some people choose to take it out of a vehicle budget and put it into an equipment budget. But if you you get to the term on that vehicle and you need to keep some equipment and transfer it over to another vehicle, that part is totally at your discretion.
But we're responsible for upfitting every time, right? And the
May I ask-
cost of the equipment and the vehicles, and then that's one of the things that we've learned is sometimes it doesn't, especially in 5 years, it's not gonna be, it would be reused. Right?
Yeah. Who's your aftermarket provider now? Who do you get your police equipment through?
Well, we do use a lot of federal equipment.
Is it like through Blue Tech or a specific aftermarket vendor?
I don't know who it is.
We can work through that for sure.
The way, to answer your question, I think, where we get our vehicles from is from the Maryland contract.
Yeah.
They contract with Bertrand Fleet, and then we
Yep.
get it from them at the Maryland price. And then our
Major
guys
police.
replace the equipment.
Major police supply, does that sound right?
Yeah.
That's who we use.
So your question is how would that differ?
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
It's not any different, right? We
We
would
buy
still
the
purchase the
equipment.
equipment and then have it installed, and then if we want it, when you go to sell the vehicle, we can take it out.
Yes.
Right, but
Yeah.
that still falls on us.
Yeah.
Right. What about maintenance of the
Um,
vehicles, since we don't own them?
So currently, Cecil County is actually using a lot of local vendors. And that would bill through Enterprise, and then we funnel it onto our website, which we didn't really want to get into today, but we're going to track that by vehicle.
Do we have a say?
Yes.
Because we're arresting some of these people
Yeah.
that might work at some of these shops, and
Yep.
I don't know that I wanna work on one of those shops.
I'm familiar with that specific instance. I'll leave it
The
at that.
town has 2 mechanics that do all our work.
Yeah, but then we have a liability.
How are they,
So I will say, if you prefer to continue to do some of that maintenance in-house, again, totally at your discretion. As one of the largest fleets in the world, we outsource everything to the Jiffy Lubes and the dealerships and the Firestones. Because yes, that allows us to push the liability outside. And then also gives us a track record that maintenance is being done appropriately and at the right cost and at the right intervals. There's a danger to under-maintaining and over-maintaining those vehicles, and this just allows us a clean process and track record to make sure everything's being maintained appropriately.
But if we did it in-house,
Again, yeah, totally an option.
that's a cost that would be subtracted
Yes, we would be out of the process at that point.
by the liability, like, if you were to say, well, you didn't change the oil on time, that would mess up.
Well, we wouldn't come back and say that if there were, let's say, somebody doesn't screw in something for the engine, the oil leaks out, right? We're still gonna help eliminate that vehicle at fair market value. Enterprise is not coming back and saying, hey, you blew an engine, you're on the hook for X dollars. We're still gonna help in every way that we can to get a new vehicle, eliminate the old one. You're probably filing a claim with your insurance company at that point for the cost of the vehicle. Something to talk about.
Would our mechanics then have to become like an approved vendor?
No. So if you're gonna continue to do everything in-house with the 2 mechanics, totally fine. We would just cut Enterprise out of the maintenance part of that. And hopefully we could supply some data, parts and labor prices to be able to, implement again another cost structure on what we're actually spending here.
So the cost where you were saying, did that include, that was just the vehicles, that didn't include the maintenance? With you guys doing it, yeah.
The cost analysis that we just put on the screen were industry averages based on, police vehicle costs on average 40 cents a mile in maintenance.
So it did include maintenance on it?
Yeah. But whether you're getting it done with Enterprise or without Enterprise,
So that would adjust that cost?
not significantly, honestly.
So it would just be an added cost with us?
Yeah.
Okay. have you had any issues, getting some police vehicles?
Yeah.
And when I hear you talk about, some of the, working together and being partners in this and seeing are you gonna tell me what kind of car I need for my detectives or for my admin?
Absolutely not.
Are all your police vehicles needed for pursuits?
They can be if you'd like them to be, yes. So we're going directly to the manufacturers typically and ordering these vehicles straight from the manufacturer. If you want to say, hey, Tyler, Michael, let me know what your best full-size SUV, pursuit-rated SUV is gonna be, and can you bring me that information so that I can make the best decision for my budget? That's what we're gonna do.
Do you decide what kind of vehicles I have, whether I go with Ford or a Durango or a Tahoe?
We are brand agnostic. Whatever you prefer is gonna be what we go with.
And so I have not a lot of understanding, but a little understanding where it comes from allocations.
Yes.
And what's your allocations look like? And does that impact what you're able to get and provide to me?
Yes, we are at the liberty of the production lines, just like everybody else is. I think the difference will be is we have many avenues of finding vehicles that may fit your need, even though it's not a perfect fit. If you need a set of wheels, we're going to help you find a set of wheels. But also, how can we maximize our allocation? And this is a great process of doing that, because we are tightening up the life cycle, going from a 10-year to a 5-year. And as we increase that, you're obviously getting more allocation from the manufacturers. They look at 3-year history. You probably know. What have you purchased over the last 3 years? And as we acquire more vehicles through specific manufacturers, that earns you more allocation. So it's all kind of wrapped together. But hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, yeah.
Guys, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Mayor, thank you.
Is the Corvette out of the question?
Yes. Yeah.
I need a name.
You know, hey Lou, I think we've been bouncing around on the agenda, but do you think we should go right into the rating method?
I would, you have a lot of expensive people
Yeah, I think so too.
here at the meeting.
Oh, what do you want to do here? You pick what agenda item.
I think we have Kimberly Min somewhere up there.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Craig Aaron.
I think we gotta run with that, guys. I apologize. Kimberly, are you there?
There she is.
Can we turn that speaker up a little bit, maybe?
The rate and method of apportionment in the bottom line here is how much money will be charged to residential, commercial, and sports and RV properties that are located within a special taxing district. And I think Kimberly or Craig Aaron or somebody there can break it down a little bit because it's a pretty complicated document.
Can you break it down for us?
Kimberly, can I get you just to do a test for me?
Can you talk, Kimberly, so we can hear you?
Test.
Give us a,
Come on now, sing a song.
Yes, can you hear me?
yeah, we got you.
Okay, no, you don't want me singing, I can't carry a tune in my voice, no. So,
If you're a mother, you can sing a little.
no, that's my kid. Stop. Okay, so I guess where we want to start is where are we exactly?
For the microphone.
Hang on 1 second for him.
There's a volume button that'll be on the laptop itself. I saw Bree do it the other night, and it really took the volume up. So it'll be a little volume down there, a little at the corner. Here, you can take it to the right a little bit. Okay, that should do it.
Let's try that again.
Try it again, Kimberly.
How about now?
Perfect. All right.
All right, so let's just start with where the town currently is now with regard to the special tax district and, the project, et cetera, which is, the town has passed 2 resolutions, if you recall last year. The resolution for creating the special tax district, right, which also, creates what's called a rate and method of apportionment, which is how the special taxes get allocated, and that was included in the initial adoption. In the intervening time, so that's in place. The other resolution is for bonds that have not been issued yet. but would get repaid by the special taxes when that happens. So the rate and method of apportionment has changed, and Louis, I think it sort of circulated the, where the amendments kind of came through, but there were a couple of changes that took place, and I'm having a little bit of trouble. I was thinking about trying to post it. To the rate method of apportionment. The first is, initially there was what they called marina property that had an allocation. That's been changed now to, I think, recreational vehicle.
Yeah, the RV.
Use, yeah, the RV use, so that gets a separate apportionment. So that's sort of like the main substantive one. And then, bear with me 1 second, because my PDF crashed. And then there is, so then there's the same other uses. The same other uses that we talked about are commercial property, which includes hotel, luxury RV, mixed retail, sports property, anything that's really not residential, that's all still the same. And then there's the residential properties category or class, which is basically defined as developed property used for any kind of residential dwelling units. So those are the same two categories. So those have not been changed. The real only change is the change to the luxury RV property and adding that use in there and deleting the marina use. So then the apportionment changes and adjusts the maximum special tax for each category of property. So for example, the residential property, the maximum tax per unit was $577. Is $577, it was $541, so it went up by $36. The hotel property, which originally was $915 per room, is now $491 per room, so that's decreased. Mixed retail property was $893 per 1,000 square feet. Now it's $1,270 per 1,000 square feet. They deleted an allocation or special tax associated with office property. I believe that the theory is now that there is not going to be office property. And then they consolidated the allocation of a maximum special tax to sports property versus distinguishing between outdoor property and indoor property. So it's now going to be a substantial change. It's $3,694 per acre versus the $1,066 per acre, and then there was $336 per 1,000 square feet. So it put those together and is now allocating it only by acre as $3,694. And then the marina property, which was initially $1,949 per slip, is now the luxury RV property, which is $237 per acre. So MuniCap coordinates with the, in sort of making these allocations, coordinates them with the developer about, what they think the amount of the fees for each property will bear. I know that Christine is on the phone. Chris, do you have anything to add to what was behind, some of these adjustments and changes? I know one was obviously related to the change in the use.
No, I think that's really it, Kimberly. It really was just to make adjustments for the new use classes, and that's primarily it. I apologize, everyone. I've got a bit of a summer cold here.
So the idea is that the town would be receiving and adopting a supplemental resolution. We have a draft of that we prepared that's been approved by the working group. That would then replace the existing RMA with the new RMA that I've just kind of reviewed with you and the changes to that.
The supplemental resolution, who's preparing that?
We did, Whiteford, in conjunction with McGuire Woods, who's the bond counsel. So that was, I circulated or sent you the most recent draft of that, which we can finalize in an email on Wednesday, June 21st. I can forward that to you.
I think you need to send that to me again. I don't recall
Sending
getting
it right now, no problem.
Bingo. Okay. So the mayor and commissioners have to pass that supplemental resolution at a meeting in order to adopt the amended RMA.
Yeah, so, this is, just to remind the group, so that's the initial bridge and legislative action that needs to take place. I'm not sure how much we are drilling down through this on the agenda. There's also the memorandum of understanding that's related to the Southfield's upcoming bond issue, where it's been proposed, and there was a discussion with Sidelines, that if the town were to take title to the sports property, that instead of being exempt, as it would be as public property under the RMA, that it would assume and pay the special taxes that were associated with the sports property, and that's in connection with the kind of the separate transaction. The town would own that property potentially in connection with a separate transaction regarding the sportsplex itself. These are two different pieces, I think, as everybody knows. The first piece is issuing the bonds to be repaid with the special taxes to build the public infrastructure. I don't know how to turn that off. Bear with me. And then, do not disturb. And then all the properties get that special tax, allocation. There's an allocation to the sports property. Then separately, if the sportsplex were to proceed and the town were to take ownership of that property, the MOU says that the town will be paying and responsible for the special taxes, so it doesn't convert the sports property from a taxable property to a public property, which isn't taxable, because as you can tell from the amount of the special taxes, the special taxes associated with the sports property are, important and being used to underwrite and repay the bonds. Chris, did you want to add anything to that description of the MOU and its purposes? Because that's been asked to be considered by the town as well.
No, I mean, I know that we talked about this briefly a few weeks ago. This is just it's a very contingent linkage, but the purpose really here is just to provide some comfort to the potential bond investors that, given the public, the amount of public press there's been around the potential for a sports park, that, we've kind of thought about it as it relates solely to the special taxing district bonds. Nothing obligates the town by entering into the MOU, and I think, I just want to reinforce that.
Yeah, so Davenport, actually, Lewis is on the line, Jennifer Dierksen. I know we've got her from a limited period of time, but I know that Davenport has been in touch with MuniCap and, and the underwriter, Chris and other folks, about what that potential obligation would be if it were undertaken in connection with the sportsplex. But as Christian said, that is a contingent obligation, but obviously we're curious as to know what the magnitude of that might be if it goes forward with the sportsplex, because they are linked. Chris, am I correct that the special taxes for the sportsplex are critical to the underwriting of the repayment of the bonds for the special taxing district?
That's correct. I mean, just for everyone's benefit, the sports park is receiving, a sizable amount of the infrastructure associated with the proceeds coming from the special taxing district bonds. And as such, it is paying, obviously it's pro rata share, but given that it is receiving, a sizable amount of benefit, the amount of revenues attributed to the repayment of the debt service, are material.
Great, so Jennifer, are you still on the line?
I am, yes. Yeah, and we had talked about this a little bit at the meeting in June, but MediCap provided sort of the maximum special tax, if, the town were to acquire ownership of that property. The special tax over the 30-year period would range from about $166,000 to about $297,000 per year. And that's what the maximum amount would be.
And just to close the loop, because again, that's an obligation that the town would be, in a sense, guaranteeing if it were to own the property, right? But to just kind of close it, like to carry it through, as I understand it, the idea is if the sportsplex were to proceed, and it, which is, part of the entire contemplated project, and if the town were to assume ownership of the property so it doesn't convert it from taxable to public property, then these are annual tax obligations that would presumably be included in, a repayment obligation from the operator of the sportsplex as like part of their tax bill that needs to get paid. I know that the word being used was sort of a pilot around making sure that that tax obligation gets passed through to the operator to be paid from the revenues of the project. And so there's an entire different term sheet and negotiation around what the deal with the town and the sportsplex is, but trying to keep these categorized as much as possible. The resolution for the amended RMA is the amendment to change the allocation of the special taxes and the uses of the property. And then once that gets adopted by the town, then the underwriter and the developer will seek to move forward with issuing the bonds to do the public infrastructure. And in connection with that bond issue, the town will be asked to confirm that if it ever were to own the property, it would not convert under the RMA the property from sports, taxable property to public property. So you can't sidestep the obligation by taking ownership. Gotcha. And the town not being responsible as a sovereign for the taxes. So it's a confirmation of its assumption of that obligation, should that be how the deal gets structured. Presumably, Chris, there's all different kinds of structures around the sportsplex bond, so that's its own separate conversation that I understand is still ongoing, but as I understood the agenda item today was to discuss the changes to the RMA and then the request about the MOU.
No, I agree with that assertion, Kimberly. And let me just emphasize, one last point, and then I'll be quiet. Entering into the MOU doesn't obligate the town to do anything with respect to the sports park. It's zero obligation whatsoever. All it's really doing is it allows us just to put, a couple sentences in the securities document when we sell the special taxing district bonds that, there has been some thought about this. We understand what the implication is, and that's really it. There's no further requirement or obligation of the town to do anything. It's only if the town and Sideline decide to enter into a separate transaction regarding the sports park, where the town at that point would, need to, make a decision about, how it wants to handle the agreements with Sideline through the pilot. But that's a separate conversation for a future date.
So, just out of curiosity, Chris, at what stage of the kind of negotiations around the sportsplex would you as the underwriter be looking for in knowing, how that's proceeding before the public before the special tax bonds get issued, or are they not linked?
I don't see them as linked, and I would say, I think it's probably premature even really to opine on at this point. I think, the town and Sideline, I think are still, in active discussions, and I don't think it's anything more than that, but, I'm happy to let the mayor or the commissioners weigh in here, but that's just my current understanding.
The only I was just going to say the only comment I have is that I know that we need to get, I think there was a document that was produced to us to take a look at about moving forward with sidelines, but I don't think we've sat in a room to really discuss that. But we do need to get that back on the table again.
Absolutely.
And let me just add, that what was circulated to this group here was really just to start the conversation of how it might look. It's by no means, anything representative of what, the final outcome would look like. It really was just to take our last conversation and put it on, put some thoughts on the paper, addressing some of the comments that were raised on our June meeting with respect to, the pilot and other thoughts. So it's the first of, I'm sure, many conversations, but that really was just that was the writing that was intended to kind of, provoke, additional conversation that, I'm sure Davenport and Kimberly and everyone else in this room, certainly has, sizable thoughts as to where we need to take it.
Thank you. Does anyone from the board have any other questions or comments for Kimberly? Lou, you have any other comments?
I want to thank everyone there involved in this for attending the meeting today and providing some insight on this RMA, which is a very important document relating to this whole project, Southfield project.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Of course, and just, Louis, for your calendaring purposes, I know that bond council and, the working group will be looking for a date that this would be the resolution would be officially introduced and passed through your meeting schedule. So once y'all have the chance to confirm all of that, we'll let the working group know what dates are intended to be targeted for the adoption of the resolution.
Yes, I'll get back to you, Kimberly.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Would you like us to sign off?
Yeah, you can if you want.
All right, now you're funny, Louis.
Hey, turn off the clock.
Yeah, I know, TikTok. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day.
I'll be the Zane.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we wanted to discuss our water and sewer rates. And I guess a little bit about infrastructure in general.
You know, I did an amendment for us.
What amendment?
Amendment to the town of Elkton charter.
I have a feeling that'd be on the world for a little bit.
Or you want to talk about the fire company? Is that what you're talking about?
Should we?
Yeah, we can go right in it. At least when they get impatient, they want to learn a little bit about it.
I've been watching them fidget.
Well, listen, we got to make sure our plant's running.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So I'm going to defer to the board and let's talk a little bit about the Singerly Fire Company. So, guys, thanks for coming back. We've been working on this a little bit. From the last meeting, you had 3 of us here, and then we got the full board today. And I think I've made it, how I kind of feel about it in general is that looking forward, based upon what you guys are sharing with us, is that, to be blunt, the Singerly Fire Company, as well as many other fire companies across the country, will be struggling financially unless we can figure out a way to make it work. And the dates that you gave us, I think you said in 2027. 2027, Singerly Fire Company is going to have to start pulling out of their savings, and if there wasn't any additional help, by 2032, Singerly Fire Company would be completely out of savings. And what does that mean? It's done. There would be no additional dollars coming in. It would be probably down to a bare staff, less services to our community, and we know what can happen when things like that happen.
And just to clarify, the 2027 is the beginning of taking out a savings, but we've already started reducing services and equipment today. We're already doing that. So
Preparing.
it's not even preparation. It's we have to reduce cost because our revenue has to match our cost, and right now the revenue doesn't match the cost. So our only choice is to reduce cost, which also means reducing services.
Sam, can you explain to me, what services are you reducing?
Well, those things that cost, for example, we have a dedicated rescue truck. So you have a car accident, it has all the equipment for that. We are in the process of selling that vehicle and moving that equipment to other vehicles to reduce the cost of operating that equipment. Annually, we impact about 5,000 kids and seniors with fire prevention programs. Those programs will slow down. The last thing that will happen is reduction of ambulance and fire services, but we're already contracting now.
By not responding?
By reducing costs, getting rid of vehicles. That vehicle has an operating cost, it has insurance costs, has replacement costs. So we just had a conversation yesterday about doing away with an aerial truck. We're required to have two, we only have one, and we're talking, well, it's on the table to get rid of that one, which will actually increase the fire insurance for our residents.
Okay, could I ask, is an aerial truck used for the Menhanes fire?
Yes.
And if you didn't have it, what would you do? New work?
We would have to depend on somebody else.
Okay, because they're the closest aerial probably.
Yeah, Newark, Chesapeake City. Northeast.
Well, area would be Newark and Perryville.
They have an
Rising
aerial,
Sun.
Perryville?
And why are you thinking about getting rid of it again?
Well,
Reduction of costs.
It's a process, right? So we're working with you guys about increased funding, and until that comes to fruition and is realized, we're evaluating and preparing to ensure that ambulance service is not affected and so forth. So there's some money management, some resource management, and looking at the rescue truck, it's over $1 million for the rescue vehicle itself. Is that essential right now? Well, no, right now essential is you call for an ambulance, you get an ambulance. You have a fire, you get fire. So we're looking at ways to manage before it becomes a larger problem.
But wouldn't it be harder to replace if you found your other unit?
Well, it's one of the things that we're looking at.
Oh, you're both, okay.
And we're going through the process to plan. Plan A, Plan B, Plan C. So
Okay.
that's why timing is vital, because we're at a timeline juncture for us to make some of these moves.
So the glide path doesn't just start in 2027, we're in the glide path now.
One of the scary things here is that the town's planning on developing, or through a development process, the Southfield Sportsplex and everything else, which, as the mayor said, will draw thousands and thousands of people. Thousands and thousands of people mean greater and greater risks. And the need for fire, rescue, EMT, on and on and on. So the reduction of the fire services and their associated work is critically important, and it'll be
We
a real problem
estimate
for us.
Southfields and the two Money Lane projects, just on raw numbers, not counting the extra visitors, represents about 350 more calls a year for us, just those three projects.
So our comprehensive plan as a company should, once we are able to complete this process with the town, the funding comes through, then we're able to sustain our service and grow to meet those needs. We don't receive the funding, we have to maintain and is to cut back or not be able to expand to meet the needs. So that's why it's vitally important now, as we look at these other projects. We know the timelines of when we need to increase staffing. Right now, we're actually at the point where we need to increase staffing this year. But until we solidify the funding stream moving forward, all those plans are on hold.
I think we've gone over this and over this and over this, and it's unacceptable for you guys to lower your standards. We gotta go to a high standard, right? We wanna keep going at the highest level.
We
don't wanna
reduce
we know
you saw
that.
peak performance down the street. Unfortunately, you saw peak performance at the Howard House.
So well, listen, you think about that, we talked about this at the last meeting, that you guys were able to only lose the 2 buildings that had the fire. And everything around it was protected. And if you went back into the 50s or 60s, I don't want to say go back in time, but we would have lost the whole block. And maybe across the street. You just don't know, right?
Yeah. It probably would have gone at least to the old Ford dealership.
Yeah.
Another thing that's scary too, we had 2 of our employees injured in a serious accident on Route 40 in Landing Lane, and your rescue vehicle was there along with your personnel that had to extract those people. Not only, and that was a good use of that vehicle and all the equipment that's there, centralized in a sense, consolidated better. And your people would be able to have that right there, because our people depended on that.
So we went.
We have an ambulance responding right now on Bridge Street, right at Bridge and Railroad Avenue, right now, they're there now.
One of the, I guess we crunched some numbers, and we were thinking it would have to be a 7-cent increase. 7.5 cents, and it would be, we thought we could phase it in over a 3-year period to make that impact. And so I have to say, Lewis has been working on some language as far as changing the charter, or I guess it would it be amending the charter through a resolution, and this is the language that we have to agree upon, but it would be, the town of Elkton shall allocate a portion of its real estate tax revenue during each fiscal year to partially fund the operations, maintenance, and capital expenses of the Singer Lake Fire Company. This general fund real property tax allocation shall be incorporated into a fiscal year budget ordinance and provided to the Singer Lake Fire Company as set forth therein. Now, Lou, I think that your comment to me was, or your thinking was, based on some of the emails, was that it was probably better not to actually put a number?
Well, the number would have to, we'd have to have flexibility in there, because the fire company needs flexibility. And right now, it's only 1.2 cents per 100, and that's not enough money. That's only 166,000 for fiscal, 24, right? Yeah, that's not very much money. Drop in a hat compared to what they need. That's about
That doesn't pay off.
$1.5 million or something. So I think that's where the 7.5 cents comes from.
So we were bouncing back and forth with some different numbers. I think we said not to exceed a certain number. We were thinking about stair-stepping it. I don't know. I don't know what the best avenue to go here. I kind of like it open-ended. It'd be open-ended for, but I think if it's open-ended, the bad thing is we recognize what that is. The next group may not understand or recognize what that number would be.
And 2, at first it was 1/3 of their budget, but that can fluctuate tremendously.
Yeah.
We can't base our tax revenue off of.
But just like we were talking earlier, you have to be able to plan, so if we know.
Way in advance.
So for us, in our comprehensive plan, we need 1.2 million. 1.2 million. That's based on today's numbers and today's projections, yeah. So, what gets us there, that 7.5 cents gets us to 1.2 million.
So it's not, okay.
So.
Lou, is there a way that we can specify a number?
Sure you can. Just pass a resolution.
It's
Specify now, instead of putting,
Well, I'm
150,
thinking-
put
Well, I'm-
7.5.
Well, I'm almost thinking instead of doing even the 0.07 cents, we just specify $1.2 million, and it'll be, but then that could, I mean, the value of $1.2 million is gonna be the value of $1.2 million in 10 years.
It won't even be next year, probably. Just
Yeah,
as
that's the.
the number changes every year.
And- Well, listen, this is here for the board to digest, I think.
My comment would be, usually the amount is based on what the assessment will be. You know, so that way, as the assessment goes up,
It'll
the amount
increase.
goes up, because the fire company has to adjust to the increased growth of the town. So that's why it was put in there at 1.2 cents per 100, because that's based on the assessment.
Yeah.
And certainly with Southfield, that assessment will go up significantly. Consequently, you know, you probably want to make it based on the growth of the town rather than a fixed amount.
So if we did 7.5 cents as the assessed
Yeah,
value
per
goes up,
100, that'd be-
the contribution would go and it would
Right.
match our service curve.
Lou, can you do it where it's stepped in a 3-year window?
Not sure how you do a charter amendment with that in there.
How can we charter amend?
We'll have to think about that, because when you amend the charter, you don't amend it every year.
Well, that's the other hiccup. You don't want to go through, because you don't know what'll happen by the next group.
Well, would it be possible then to say that if we change the formula amount that's in there to 7.5 cents, so we just do the formula change, and we say beginning in 2027, but you agree as a budgetary process that you phase it in to that, so like we discussed, 2 cents next fiscal year, 2 cents the following fiscal year, and then you reach the 7.5 cents in 2027. The charter said by 2027, it'll be 7.5 cents.
I think I could live with that if that could be done. You guys okay
That
with that?
sounds reasonable if it can be done.
If it can be done, that in fiscal year 2027, it could be a 7.5 cents, and then we're gonna try the 2 cents next year, and the 2 cents more on top of that the following year. I like that.
That's only 6.
That's the way we talked about it last week.
But that way, it's a single charter change, and it works, it gives you flexibility, us flexibility, but we all know by 2027, that's when the 7.5 cents.
Is the board, is the board in general okay with it? I think Charles is.
In general, I am.
But keep in mind though, I mean, it's gonna hurt a little bit for the residents, because not only do you have an adjustment for the fire company, which is critical to the fire company operations, you have the continuing operations of the town that's going up, and then you'll have a reserve fund for the capital costs of the sportsplex, and our debt service on that will.
Well,
I
I don't think that any of us, any resident of the town that doesn't place value on this, if you make a phone call and you guys don't show up, that's the problem. Right?
Well, I don't think there's a question about that.
You're gonna have to do it. Lou, create us a document that has that. All right, guys.
The question on the previous discussion on vehicles, is that something we could get involved in as well? And is there benefit to the town in having more vehicles in that program?
That's a good question, Sam. I was wondering about that myself.
I don't know. But we would certainly like to be part of that conversation.
You mean, you're talking about enterprise?
Yeah.
I don't know if
That's
it's-
another 7 vehicles.
If you're going with this vehicle, that's in there, really need fire vehicles.
What's the aftermarket on a ladder truck?
They appreciate quite a bit of the time we're done.
Well, listen, we're just getting into that conversation from enterprise, but we'll bring that up and we gotta see if we can make that happen. But listen, I'm glad we're at this point. Who would have thought that we'd made it to this point in this short a time,
That's great.
right?
It's a shame that other cities aren't following your example, because there are literally departments without business.
So you just tell them to call us.
Well, I also, I've said before, this needs to be looked at globally for Cecil County. And the administration office, I'm meeting with Danielle on the 19th. And this is on the agenda.
For us, for planning purposes and the administration, we're looking at the rest of the truck and things. Timeline-wise, when might there be a final vote?
I would say that we kick in the next two, my opinion would be to be in next year's budget, the 2%.
But the charter amendment.
I think we'll make the charter amendment. We can start that process as soon as next meeting.
Since I amend it and everybody and council reviews it and everything, we'll bring in resolution. The resolution has to be passed at a meeting, and then it's advertised with 40 days. We'll take care of that.
So likely the last meeting of August possibly.
Probably, yeah.
All right.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. And I don't want to see you guys again next time. All right, water and sewer rates and everything in general. So we've got, and I apologize to everyone that was online that's been sitting for such a long time. You get to hear a little bit of everything that we're doing here today.
It's educational, Mayor.
It is. We're getting education also, Jerry. So listen, I guess we have a lot of different questions. We have a lot of infrastructure questions and comments, and we thought it'd be better to kind of do it as a team approach and just see where we're at. Where are we heading? Where are we going? I know we've got a little bit of some hiccups on our end, but I'd like to know, I guess I got like 4 or 5 different things here on my plate about water and sewer, and I have to make I say I, and I apologize for that. We have to make a decision as a town on what our rates are going to be. And we gave the residents some rate relief, I guess maybe 8 years ago on water and also on wastewater. Now we're starting to see our rainy day fund, our enterprise fund for water and sewer deplete, so we know that our rates are too low. And we also, but one of the thoughts that we had back when we did this is we didn't want to put the burden on the residents all the time when we have maybe some internal hiccups. And I'm not pointing at you when I'm saying this, I'm saying us as a team, is that we were having, and we still do, have a large water loss. And this water loss, we all want to find out where it's going. Where's it at? How come we keep losing so much water? And that was kind of our thinking. We didn't want to raise any rates until we truly felt that we had a handle on where all this lost water was going. So we've been working on that. We've been working on water meters with the town. We've been looking at our billing side of things on the town. So I guess I just kind of like to know maybe where we're at collectively as a team. So Lou, do you want to, what direction do you want to go here?
One of the comments, Infomark's responsibility is production of water. And the town's responsibility, separate from them, is the distribution system and the billing system. So something, the annual audit for water that shows an enormous amount of water that we can't account for in some meetings. Now, there are certain elements that are at play here because when they fight a fire down there, that water's not accounted for. When they do things, service maintenance up to the fire company, they don't account for that water. And there's lots of water, fire hydrant flushings, things like that. But that really can't explain the millions of gallons that we can't find. But infrastructure pretty much stops at the water plant and the wells, and it's our responsibility after that And I think that Mark, where's Mark here? He could probably give him and Dan, and could probably give the board a good understanding of how many different places we've looked for water. And for some reason, it seems to be very elusive. We even had KCI involved. And we've had people come in. Yeah, KCI. We've had people come in, do leak detection, and we did find some leaks and we patched them up. They weren't critically, that critical, but I don't know, Mark and Dan and KCI, whoever's here, might want to come up and.
Yeah, we gotta
Oh,
start.
Ryan, okay, Ryan's on the end.
We
There you
got a
go.
lot to talk about.
Well, listen, yeah, come on up and we'll do this collectively. I guess, have we exhausted all of our avenues for trying to find the lost water?
I found some, it's not a lot, but I found something that was crazy the other day on Bridge Street. They were trying to remodel the old tri-cruise crossing American Market.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't work, or we turned off wherever we could find. It didn't stop. So we did some tracing and found there's another line coming out of the building. We dug it up, found the concrete about that part was shut off to the building. So we shut it off, and it killed that part of the building. When we turned it back on, the only part, half the building was being metered, the other half wasn't. So we put a pit meter in, so now we captured it all. I don't know how many places that may be happening. You don't know, businesses. And I did this report, I hope you all got a copy of it.
Yeah, we have.
But, Mark, could there be a plan in place? How can we check every building? Is that what would have to happen? We physically go, but
I would say the businesses first. Houses,
we've been to them, we've been going to them.
we see it.
We've less than, I think you're probably less than a couple hundred houses, so
Yeah.
everything else is all businesses.
Like the big up malls remodeled so many times, and they get so many leaks, and we don't, that's all lost water, that's all lost.
Well, you brought up a great suggestion, and how do we implement that? How do we implement putting a master meter at Big Elk Mall now? How can we say, do it? What can we do?
I'd love to say do it.
Oh, yes, can we do that? Yes.
But why haven't we? Lou, can we do it? Is it?
No, the only difference honestly is if you go, like Big Oak Mall, if you build individual businesses, that's how it is. If we put a master meter in, then it's up to the Cornish Corporation to build it. We're fine that way. Our part, we can do it. It's just the ramifications down the road. If you're fine with it, thanks.
Well, listen, could we put a master meter in now,
Yes.
right? And then audit it with all the meters it's within? Shouldn't it be within a percentage?
That would be a great test.
Yes. We have a few places that have it, but we don't read it, we could read them. And apparently we can, with the tower we have in, working now with the census meters, we could take like Pine Valley, and we can take all those meters that in there, and we can read them one day, and we can read that master meter and see what we're losing.
Yeah. I think we need to do it.
How long would this take?
I'd have to talk to the guys at LB, they said it could be done.
Yes.
Give them finance, and you taught how to do it, we can do it.
I would propose one master meter for a Big Elk Mall to use, for example, and give them all the rest of the meters, let them bill the individuals.
Oh, yeah. We agree.
But I would think they would not be real receptive to that.
Yeah, but we're not at that point.
They're using the water.
No,
I'm not arguing that, but I think that there would be some feedback from some pushback.
No, I think, but if our first step is to put that meter in and then audit our numbers, because I do agree, I see water coming up out of that parking lot all the time.
Yeah, that would, it could help catch a leak. If there's one in there, yeah, that would definitely help auditing the volume going in and whatever is being billed to the customers in there.
And I would even say this, I don't mind billing all those customers, but if there's a difference, a discrepancy between the main meter, we'll send Mr. Cordish a bill and say, here's the difference in your park, right? That sounds pretty simple to me. He's gonna argue,
But first we
right?
have to do the experiment, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
How big
So-
a meter would you think that would require for the Elk Mall?
Like six or eight.
That's a couple of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Like what?
pipe came out of the ground, one meter went this way, one went this way, and the other one up, and who knew where it went. No idea where it went. It ain't somewhere in that mall.
Listen, the call set meter, if it's $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, we'll probably find, we may find that in water leak money,
Right, sure.
the first meeting, the first billing. So can we do that? I mean, Lou, are you good with
Yeah,
that?
the reason I hesitate, I'm not sure, how many water lines go to the?
Two, we can turn that off.
Yeah,
Turn
yeah,
one off.
we
One-
cut
one
more
Bridge
stuff.
Street?
One on Bridge Street, one at the entrance coming in off the corner.
Are they on Cordish property?
We're at the edge of the property.
Well, that's what I mean, I don't know if they're in the state right of way or the Cordish property. That's the,
One on Bridge Street, I think it's back, it might be Cordish, it's back a little bit past the entrance, we've actually looked at that thing before, but I'm not sure what the, right of entry is.
We haven't approved it, the one at the mall, we have to, we can back up behind one and put another meter, another.
Okay, what I'm saying is that working in the state right of way is different from working on Cordish
We
property.
can go, I think we can go back.
We'll take a look at it.
How long does it take to install this meter, once you start it?
My guys can do it in a couple of days, I mean, it has to be nighttime, we have everything, you do it in the night. We have to dig up and make sure, verify everything.
A couple days.
Yes.
And then, oh, I'm so sorry,
No, we can shut off the other stuff.
Okay,
Okay, I didn't know if that's possible.
If we can go to the valve that's there now,
all right.
in, if we have to, the other one can pop.
So
Okay.
how long will it take to do the experiment? How long?
I think it's a meter.
I'd have to dig up and get the exact size of the pipe, and then order the meter.
I say it'd be a great experiment, and if that works, then we go to Pine Valley or,
My
right?
guys already got a meter.
Oh, Pine Valley's already has
Yes,
them.
we just
But-
don't read it.
Okay, now, have we metered the wastewater treatment plant for the water yet?
Yes, we do, we've been doing that for the last, I think, 2 years. Yeah, we do the wastewater.
So we know how much water,
They use,
okay, we didn't know that for a long time, right?
no.
Well, they use processed water too. In other words, they use potable water and processed water. So it depends on, what operation's going on.
But we put a meter on and getting just the,
Yeah, we know.
yeah, we put a meter.
Do they have to use
They have a meter.
both for that? Do they need treated water?
That's an early question.
Oh, they use treated water for some of the process, yes. But we have a meter that gets all the domestic water going in there.
Okay. So, once again, once you get this meter installed at the Big Elk Mall, and we're gonna do a master reading compared to the individual readings, is that what, a month?
Oh, yeah, definitely, I have a little.
For the reading comparisons? Okay, that's interesting,
So I think we're gonna find a lot there.
all right.
Like I said, other places, they're the same way.
And there's, you know, I always question Triumph Industrial Park, I bring it up every time. But we've done everything,
There's a new meter out there.
okay, very good. Is there anything that we could authorize to help find any additional leaks?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
while you got that question out there, I've got Dwayne Lowry, our surface water, technical resource for the region. He's with us today. And Mark Zella, our construction manager.
Yes, sir.
He's with us today too. I want to introduce them before they started to interject. But I think Dwayne's probably going to interject right here.
All right, Dwayne, is there anything we should be doing?
Well, I was just curious as I was listening, have you guys thought about implementing zone metering where you can look at your distribution system, put something similar what you described as a master meter in particular zones so that you can help identify locations that may be using more water than others when you compare that meter to the meter reads to find out that you might have leaks in this part of the community, and zone metering helps identify those areas.
I just talked to Ernie Water about that.
And that's more of a long-term strategy.
What-
But it'll capture not only usage at the industries, but larger leaks that will definitely affect your water loss percentage.
So just thinking kind of out loud, that would be, you would put a meter
Going into a neighborhood
into a neighborhood, and then you kind of track that area. So
Yeah, you could, yeah, you're correct. You'd have to look at, you'd have to look at your distribution system, look at a map, create your system into zones. You have to look how it's looped together to figure out how you can zone it. But if you can identify 4, 5, 6, whatever zones you may or may not have, and you put a meter in there, and then you can start comparing things, because you got your master meter that's leaving the water treatment plant, and then you would have these meters that go out, and you could start doing your math to determine, okay, this zone is taking this much water. When I do my meter reads, is that even close? And then you can start identifying areas. And then if you see a meter that is running and all of a sudden it increases at a higher rate, you can either look, do I have an industry in that area? Do I have a fire in that area? Do I have a leak in that area? It gives you a lot of information to help you find out where the water is being used.
we also have Ryan Flickinger on the Zoom meeting. Ryan, is that something that you could map out for us to find out where those zones would be?
Yes, yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, let me just make 2 quick points, because this is a great conversation, but I also know we have a lot of folks speaking, so I don't want to lose efficiency by chiming in several times. First off, yes, we've had the conversation about master metering the key zones throughout town. I think it's a good next step. The current game plan that we've discussed via several side conversations and meetings, but never in this open of an encompassing of a forum, is that the more hands-on meter loss and water loss detection that Kevin has been managing for KCI and working with your DPW folks on. That work is happening right now where we're physically trying to find leaks and fix them, physically trying to find inaccurate meters and fix them. My recommendation would be, once that's all wrapped up and we're nearing completion, I suggest we take another quantitative look at where your water loss numbers are coming in after having made all those fixes. And then if we still have a water loss percentage that's too large, that's when I would recommend, and this is where Kevin and I talked about putting this in the report to you, that's when we would recommend this master metering throughout town. If we still find there's a culprit out there, or most likely dozens of smaller culprits out there, that we need to find and fix. And the reason for that is master metering is a fantastic idea. As your engineer, I'm always going to be in favor for it, but it's expensive. Each one of these meters is not cheap, and depending on how many we would need to put in, it's a high ticket item from a cost standpoint. So I wanted to make sure we were providing you the backup and the evidence needed to be, for you to be able to approve that type of cost to install those meters. So that's my 2 cents on the sequencing of how we've discussed implementing this master meters, if and when our latest report shows that there's still a lot of lost water to find. My second quick point that I wanted to make, Mayor, because your topic is regarding water and sewer rates, I just want to make the point that even if the town had a completely watertight water system, which doesn't actually exist, most towns shoot to get between 10 to 12% water loss. But even if you have no water loss at all, I want you to know that my understanding and my strong opinion is that the cost of producing water is going to go up and potentially increase exponentially in the next decade or so. A lot of your local water system providers, like City of Newark, Artesian, Newcastle, they're building these PFAS treatment facilities now because PFAS is somewhat ubiquitous in our groundwater and our drinking water. And they have high, not only construction costs, but high operation and maintenance costs associated with replacing the medium for these carbon filters. We were just out of the plant the other day, and the treatment plant, the well facility was similar to your wells. And there was a 25-foot tall carbon filter there, and 2 of them actually, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain this on an annual basis. So my recommendation would be to look at the rates and look at adjusting the rates accordingly, in addition to finding this lost water. So I just wanted to get all that out there, and I appreciate you, Tom. More than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan. Wow, we certainly got a lot to think about there. What,
Oh, yeah.
Ryan, put yourself back on mute. No, I'm just teasing you. We've been pulled.
You'd rather hear me than have to look at this.
No, listen, listen, I think we all recognize that. We just got a rate increase from Artesian Water. We pull water from Artesian through the interconnect, and that brings up kind of the next point. We've been pulling a lot more water from Artesian than we ever have. And Jerry, I'm going to kind of ask you, I recognize that we have you know, the storm water coming through our water plant, but is that the main reason why we're pulling so much water from Artesian now, or is it other reasons?
Well, Mayor Hall, there are numerous factors. Dwayne Lowry, another reason for him to be on this call, he's working diligently with the water plant. Mark Zell has also helped with the UV system that the town was gracious enough to have installed. We're still trying to get that straight, but both of those folks can go into detail about what's going on at the water plant. I know one of the things we want to talk about is staffing and running the plant 24 hours a day. But we're running the plant now 21 to 22 hours a day. But we are limited, and Dwayne will really go into this, we are limited by the raceway and the amount of turbidity that hits that water plant at times. And we've got a couple solutions we think could help the town here, so go ahead, Dwayne.
And so I was out there, like maybe a month ago, and I'm gonna be out there on Monday. But one of the challenges is the amount of silt in the raceway. I know it has recently been dredged, but only about a foot of it has been dredged out of it, and it's already silted back in. Gary Gutierrez took me out there to show me exactly where, and you can almost walk across where it splits due to the amount of silt there. And when you get a major rain event and a major turbulence coming down, that pulls that silt in and makes it where you're not really treating colloidal particles, you're trying to get silt to settle. And it would be better if we could dredge deeper and provide more of an open raceway so that when the water comes flowing down there, you're not treating silt, but you're treating colloidal particles. But we're also looking at other things that we could do within the treatment facility itself in regards to the design of the flocculator units. I know the tube cellars were just recently replaced. I'm working with some chemical vendors to see if we could find a better coagulant that will cause the product to settle faster before it gets to the filters. And there's a lot of different variables that I'm analyzing. But the real concern that I saw was I totally understand why the turbidity goes so sky high, because the water is running through there and it's scouring up all that silt. And then when it slows back down, it's all settling back in. And it doesn't take long for the settling to occur. And it starts because from what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, is we're not dredging as much as we should to give us the depth in there that we need, which comes at a cost. And dredging is not cheap. The removal of the material that you pull out of the raceway is not cheap. And it's trying how to balance all that out to get what you need. We're even looking at closer to the plant of, can we do things that could back it up a little bit further, cause it to settle a little bit faster before it even comes in as we bypass some of that water. But it is challenging on what they're dealing with at that facility when the turbidities get real high. You know, some of the conversation is about the staffing and the plant run time and how we combine all that. So it's kind of a moving target on how to balance, but we're definitely looking at that. But I am really concerned siltation that's occurring in that raceway.
Dwayne, with your experience, could that raceway be cement lined? Could it be dredged down and cement lined? Or is that, does that happen in other municipalities? Could you put like a,
I have seen that. It is something that can be done. It's something that would help. It helps stabilize the bank just in of itself by doing that work. And it doesn't prevent the silting in, but at least it gives you the depth that you need to be. But it does help keep the sides from eroding in, and your problem will only be coming from the main body of water, not from the raceway itself. So you will help stabilize the raceway all the way to the plant if you were to do that.
Can I ask a question?
yeah, go ahead.
Did you say the slowing down of the water causes the silt to accumulate?
When the stormwater dissipates, and so you got the rate of flow going down the main body of water to this side, then it goes off on that raceway towards the water plant.
Right.
As the water naturally slows down, the silt will settle out.
So does that have anything to do with our draw? If we
No,
slow down our
because
draw into the
your
plant?
draw is the same. I mean, we're drawing about, I don't remember, I think we're right around 1 million gallons a day. Can't remember the exact number, I apologize. But that draw is gonna stay the same. What we're really worried about is similar to when you flush a water main, you try to go for scouring velocity to get the water main clean. When you have a storm event, you're approaching the scouring velocity for that body of water. When the storm event goes away, the body of water goes back to its natural flow rate. Our draw doesn't change that at all. It stays the same.
If the
That
plant
makes
isn't,
sense?
okay, but if the plant isn't running, how does that not change the draw?
Say that again, I want to make sure I understood you clearly.
If the plant is not running, say on a weekend, how does that not affect the draw of water? I just need to understand. Is that
Well,
minimal?
when it comes from the body of water, when you sit here, we're drawing a million gallon day rate, which is approximately 800 gallons a minute, roughly. When you go to a storm event, that's going to cause the physics to change within that body of water, that is significantly higher than 800 gallons a minute. So it comes down to, I understand what you're thinking about the draw rate having an impact to that raceway, but the impact it has is going to be minimal.
Okay, well, that was my question, if it made a difference. Thank you.
No problem.
Can I say, instead of lining the raceway, could we put a pipe in there?
I don't know,
And you have to have some clean out the manholes down through there. Then you could flush it out. We would have to dredge it, you have to dredge out on the other side only, not on that side.
So if you had a tube and you had cleanouts on top, where would you take how would you wash it?
You should be able to flush it out, open up the gate and flush it, right? If you had it at the same level coming into the plant.
You open up the pipe.
Yeah, then it would flush it right out.
Flush it out close to the plant
Yeah,
somehow.
let it go right now.
You
That's
have
what we
to-
should do.
you have to do a
Before that
bypass
gets
close to
rebuilt, that's
that
how we
pipe.
kept it.
It allowed to go past the plant, yeah.
Couldn't go around because of it.
Well, and listen, in all the, we all recognize that when the storm waters rise,
Yeah.
that's when it's bringing everything along with it. So if you did have it covered in some way, it would definitely, it would be covered. It would end up being covered.
You could leave the one side where it first comes across the road, you could leave this pond there and then pipe it the rest of the way down to the plant. And you can always flush that out when clear.
Remember, we put a 48-inch pipe in there once near the bypass too, way back when. That used to be open and we put a pipe in there.
And what happened?
Extended, we just stopped it right there.
Where it comes in now, they should be able to tap in and bring it on. And flush it.
You had to shut down, you had to shut
Well, you
down
could
the
put the pipe in,
operation
keep
of
on
that.
the plant and tie
It
it
took
away.
quite a while to do that, so.
But there's a lot of options on changing how the intake can come in from the body of water. I mean, you could pipe it, you could put in some side channel intakes, you could put in screens, you could put in traveling screens, you could put in, there's all kinds of different options, all that could be we could work with the engineers and come up with some solutions and some pricing, and obviously get that approved, and then you have to have MDE approval. But if that, in the long run, would probably be a better option than having to deal with dredging that raceway all the time. So looking at changing how the intake would come into the facility would probably be a good long-term solution, rather than we got to dredge twice a year, once a year, and then we got to get 6 feet of solids removed, and where you're going to store those temporarily and haul them off. I do think it would be worth the time to sit down and discuss options for redesigning the intake.
I think we're all shaking our head yes.
Well, we could probably move the pipe over to where the solid ground is now, leave the raceway going until you get out of government and hook it up. You think-
Yeah,
You want to-
build one right next to it.
Yeah. That's actually, yeah.
All right, listen, if we get anything out of this meeting, I think that's a great step right there, for sure.
May I ask another question?
Yes, go ahead, Michelle.
Is the water treatment plant running 21 hours a day on the weekends?
Not on the weekend.
That's what I was wondering, because I wanted to clarify that.
We run 14 hours on the weekend.
14 hours on the
5 a.m.
weekends.
to 7 p.m.
Okay.
During the weekday, typically 3 a.m. till midnight, 1 o'clock.
What's the weekend?
14 hours.
Go 500 to
Whatever, 2 days?
2 days. For
7
Saturday and
hours a
Sunday.
day?
No,
14
14
hours.
each day. 14 each day.
14, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Well, I guess that would make a world of difference if we could come up with some type of solution for the intake, right? And I think that.
I would agree.
So I would say that with, between KCI and Infomark, we should be able to come up with some type of solution with that. I think that's very, very important, because we're pulling 250,000 gallons a day from Artesian right now. And, is that what it is?
That's our minimum.
Yeah.
Saying it,
We're drawing a lot more.
Well, we're drawing a lot more than
All
250.
the capital improvements here,
Yeah.
they far exceed what we would pay for Artesian too. You have to do an analysis as to what it costs for Artesian, and that's just straight water,
Yeah,
versus
That's
all the
pretty
capital
important.
improvements that keep running the plant
yeah.
and maintaining it. I mean, so,
You don't have to sell me on that.
yeah, I know you're careful here.
Well, my
Yeah,
concern is the plant. Yeah.
Well, I think Louis has a good point. I mean, well, let me just add to this point. Currently, we're pulling well more than 250,000 gallons. We're getting charged $4.09 a gallon, I think, and we're billing our customers $3.23. So every 100 gallons that's coming through the town of Elkton is currently losing, not in all cases, because we bill some back, but we're losing, is that, I got a wrong math there maybe? But that's what I'm getting at. I mean, if we're pulling more than the minimum, we're only billing our residential users a certain amount, and yet we're pulling $4 and something cents, I think it is. Was that the right number?
Is that $4 per 1,000 gallons?
It's $4.63.2.
$4.63 per 1,000 gallons.
Yes,
And what are we charging our customers?
What is that what's that first tier?
$4.16.
Yeah, but the second tier exceeds, that's up to the first 30,000 gallons. Beyond the 30,000 gallon tier is more than what would contain Artesian.
You had that, yes.
Yeah, but I don't see where that's the crux of our problem. Seriously, I mean, I know it's a portion of the problem, but.
The issue comes down to understanding those numbers and then how much my understanding of the Artesian pools, you have to take a minimum 250. Anything above and beyond that is the extra expense that we got to start doing the financial analysis and say, how do we make this better? So does an intake and the capital cost of intake, is your return on investment 5 years, 10 years? What do you get on that in comparison to taking, instead of 500,000 gallon a day from the Artesian, or twice your requirement, and getting it back closer to that 250. And that's the analysis that's got to be understood. And because when you look at this, the finance piece of this puzzle needs to be completely understood for that capital improvement.
How do we get to that? That, I think you hit the nail on, nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. How do we get there?
We can get to that by looking at what are we currently doing, how we currently operate a plant, what impact does that mean when we do have the high turbidity events, how much more money we spending, and then say if we could get ourselves to the desired level of just the take or pay number of 250, and the water plant and the wells within the system manage the rest for the community, what does that cost? It'll take some time, but it's definitely something we can put together, and I'd be more than happy to work with the engineers on this and trying to get all these numbers and put a plan together for you that will prove or disprove what we should be doing.
I like your strategy.
I do too.
I think it's a good strategy.
But just really quickly to finish the thought on staffing, the idea is that we run 24 hours a day as much as possible, depending on demand, right? We don't want to overflow the tanks because we're working 24 hours a day, right? So as part of the latest contract, we've got an expansion there to move to 24 hours a day. That was the whole reason for the new agreement. And Jason can speak to this, but we are actively recruiting qualified individuals to get them at this plant, pay top dollar, because that's what it's going to take to get that plant staffed 24 hours a day. And not only to have these people at the water plant, but to be able to flexibly train between the water and wastewater plants, so we can move people around between the two.
That's huge. Because, we can't deny the fact that when we look at our water draws, the cost from artesian goes up considerably every weekend. And that's money that I'd rather put in, your pocket to pay personnel, whatever, to reduce those costs, because it's ridiculous. We have the numbers, if you don't, but it is concerning.
No, it is, and it is for us too. We're concerned about it. And, this is a holistic approach, and I'm really glad that this workshop is happening today, because I think everyone sees that it's not just one or two things. There's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen there. And as, we'll work as your partner with KCI and the board, Lewis, Michelle, to get this figured out. Because it is a huge drain on the resources for the town. We see this a lot, and that's why Dwayne and Mark Zella are involved, because they bring a lot of industry expertise from the operations side of things, right? We're not engineers, but we definitely know how to support the engineers and give them the operational information that they need to make decisions that are best interest of the town. I just wanted to get that out there so everyone can hear where we're coming from the Infomark line of thinking.
Well, that's how can we, I'm going to jump on to another little subject. How can we as a team work on these industrial permitting for the town? I think that we need some help or some assistance. Currently we have 6 industrial permits that we have in the town. Is that right, John?
It's either 5 or 6.
5 or 6?
I have to count.
I think it's 6.
6, could be 6.
6. And we need to come up with a little bit better plan, and I'm asking for help. Maybe we could figure out a way that we can talk to these industrial users and hold them accountable, because it sounds like that's been some of the hiccup that we've had with product going through the plant, right? It creates higher levels that doesn't allow us to meet our requirements. So we need your assistance to tell us, you know, how do we do this? How do we hold the hammer to these customers to hold them more accountable to perform? You know, you know, if it comes down to saying, hey, we got to shut you down, then we'd like to know, is that our hammer that we have to use? Am I going down the right rabbit hole here?
We're gonna be under John's guidance next Wednesday, 9 o'clock. We're gonna meet Wednesday, 9 o'clock to talk about.
So listen, they've already got this thing working out, Jerry, so I jumped in here. So Jason's already on it with John and Michelle, but I think that we you know, I'd like to touch base on it. I think before we send a harsh letter to one of our customers, I'd like to see us go for a visit. You know, go to a visit and look at the site and say, hey, listen, we're here, this is a courtesy call, you're doing X, Y, Z wrong, something's not right, you're not filling out your reports correctly, or what have you done as corrective action for these reports? We just need some tutelage to help us go through that, and then we'll send the right person out. I think it might be Mark Turnbull to be the right person, but we'll send Dan. We'll send Dan out, might be the right person, but we're gonna find somebody. It might be Lewis. Lewis might do a good job out there doing it, but we have to send someone out before we throw the hammer on. Okay, I'm gonna quit ranting.
No, and that's something we can definitely help with. We just had a 3-part industrial pre-treatment webinar for the clients, and Michelle was able to attend some of that, which covered quite a bit of industrial pre-treatment rules, regulations. But this may need to start by stepping back and looking at the sewer use ordinance, because the sewer use ordinance needs to match the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit that the wastewater plant has. So if we can only discharge, just real quick, discharge pH somewhere between 6 and 9, no industry can ever be above 6 or 9.
There you go.
Below 6 or above 9. I mean, it starts as simple as that. So that's something that we can definitely help with.
Perfect. Okay, what else do we have to?
I got one quick question.
Go ahead, Gene.
Okay, when we replaced the UV system, was there a little hiccup about maybe getting the repair done because of the age of the plant? Anybody?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. So the UV was added to the system to augment the treatment that was there already.
When we did it though, I
yeah.
mean, did it take a little longer? Was there any issues with the age of the plant making the process slower?
No, I don't think that affected
Oh,
the
okay.
installation at all. The age of the plant was not a factor.
Oh, okay. I thought, I was under the understanding that it was, and that was a concern of mine, because right away I'm saying, well, what happens the next time we have to do it? You know, I'm wondering if there's something we can do on the inside of the plant to make it operate even better.
Yeah, there are some parts of the plant that are fairly old. I know there is a dividing valve underneath in the wet well that's, I think, is broken, but it has been broken for a while. But that does not affect the UV system on its own.
On its own.
But something like that valve that's not been replaced in a long time, that's something that could be looked at in the future. It doesn't affect operations right now, if I'm not mistaken, but it's one of the things that I'd say is maybe from the age of the plant.
Is that the only problem we have?
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit too. And I think that's Kevin there. I think he's right.
Yeah,
there are components in the plant that could be upgraded and improved. But as far as the UV installation, it did. You probably did hear it took a little longer than we originally thought. The configuration of the piping and the layout. There was some intricacies within the way the water was reacting inside the pipes. So there was some trial and error. I think I was probably there 3 or 4 times with shoreline crews who installed the piping. And there was some manipulation of valves and adding of some orifice plates and things like that. But at this point, it's running the way it's supposed to. It was just a little more complicated than it originally seemed, just due to the way that the piping worked. It didn't really have to do with the age of the structure or any of the components, although I'm not saying that everything in there is up to date. As far as impacting the way it was installed, I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Yeah, how often does that have to be done?
With those UV filters, once they're put in, they're in. That shouldn't need to be, there wasn't an upgrade, it was an add to the system.
Oh, okay.
So there's bulbs inside of them, UV bulbs that will need to be, swapped out every now and then, but it's a long-term fix.
Okay, I was just wondering if there are important changes or upgrades that we need to make to the plant to get us where we want to be. And
I don't think you're wrong in wondering that and worrying about that. I think that's something that maybe if KCI is out there and we're looking at the raceway, it's something we with KCI and the town can look at and say, these are improvements that could be made and prioritize them on return on investment and exactly, really what they are going to take.
I totally agree with what Mark's saying. When you look at when that plant was put in versus the demands of the system, a lot of this comes down to just working with KCI and saying, what can we do? Because obviously the raceway is something of concern, but then you look at, most of that plant, the filters have been rehabilitated, the tube cellars have been rehabilitated. Some changes that we already have that are minor in nature, the flocculators and MDEs that go far will happen. So the inside facility is okay. I think we just need to do this analysis and come forward with, this is what we think could really help benefit the community, and put those changes out there, the cost of those changes, why the changes are needed, and to help get the plant running at the rate that you all need it to run at to meet system demand. So I think it's a tough question to answer in this call today, but if give us some time, we'll do the work and come forward with something that we can present to you and say, this is what we think we need to do. It's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I think sort of a capital improvements project list. We've done that with other clients, and we'll certainly can work with KCI and come up with a list of projects and associated costs, and are they worth it or not? This is why we want them, why are they worth it?
That would be great.
that would be, thank you.
Yeah, we can certainly work with Infomark to optimize whatever operations they have. If there's capital improvements that have been made to optimize operations, we can certainly work with them. Any of the treatment that could be changed to make it more optimal and maybe cost less. I think that those are areas we can definitely look into to help them optimize operations.
Perfect. I'm bounced around here. Mark, thank you for the information. Can your team give us a list of how many valve replacements you think we need to make? You guys.
And the backwards ones, they really need to go.
Well, let's look at replacing those backward ones, because I know that was one of our problems up at the reservoir. We were turning it the wrong way that time, right?
Yes.
But let's take a look at those. You guys exercise them all the time, right?
We have. Yes.
And when you exercise them, you should be able to determine which ones maybe are the wrong ones. Anyone else from the board? Did we address everything, or we bounced around? I think we're getting a little punchy up here.
It's been one of our better workshops, though. A lot of good stuff.
Grant monies.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, so I thought maybe we would lead with that one.
All right, that'll be perfect.
Right, so I definitely want to address it. So everyone knows we struggled last year with nitrogen at the wastewater plant, right? And the aeration discs in the oxidation dish began to fail early in the year, and this is not something that's readily detectable without pulling shafts and doing run out on the shafts and that kind of thing. But once they started to fail, we basically were in a snowstorm, perfect storm, and the town, as usual, ponied up with the money to start replacing these items. of, shall we say, a readily supply of materials to make these shafts, this work has been delayed. I'm happy to report that DSI, the contractor, is getting materials for the shafts this week. We actually involved our purchasing group to pick up the pace there, because we can't continue to rent floating aerators. We can't continue to put Band-Aids on these units. You know, it's the heart of the wastewater plant and points directly to our ability to remove nitrogen, right? So, long story short, the next big project that needs to happen at the wastewater plant is a new UV system. That it failed twice last year. Lewis has given us monies to get it to a point where we can actually have some reliability and stability there, but the system's obsolete. So, back to the grant monies, what Infomark would like to do is apply $171,000 towards that work. I think, you know, as your operator, you know, you're looking at us to tell you what you need. Once the oxidation ditch work is done and it's already paid for, right? Lewis has already given us a PO. We definitely need to move towards the UV system. We're talking about an install in possibly the next year. We're already working with KCI on a design for this unit. But just to kind of settle that grant issue, as your partner, we would love to move $171,000 towards that work. Mark Vela can manage the construction. We'll handle the purchase of the equipment. We'll do turnkey and contribute that amount of money.
Jerry, we appreciate you stepping up. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. You all are very important to us.
See, I can cross that off my list now. Okay?
Well, good. Good. Now, this is, I told Lewis we were going to do the right thing, and we would love to do this work. And in that way, I mean, you're going to have to spend it. Let us contribute and take another worry off of you.
All right. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jerry.
Sure.
And listen, thank you, team, for everyone that showed up. You guys have any questions or comments? Lou, you have any more for right now?
One of the things I think that Infomark mentioned, they're looking into the possibility of a different coagulant to deal with the high turbidity raw water. Is that correct?
Louis, yes, we are. There's all kinds of different products on the market, and then we got to work. We need to initially find someone, we got to get some vendors come in, run some jar tests, and then we got to work with MDE to make that happen. So it's not just an easy, hey, let's work, turn this on. There's steps and processes to it all. And we got to not only consider how fast does the product settle the turbidity coming in, but the other components that coagulant provides, such as TOC removal and stuff like that.
One of the biggest problems with dealing with the turbidity issue is dealing with MDE. There's no question
Correct.
about it.
Correct. And one of the concerns is going to be is a lot of the states, not every state does this, but Maryland will, is if when we switch a coagulant, how does that impact lead and copper sampling? But with the new lead and copper rule already going to impact lead and copper sampling, if we time this right, we might be able to avoid a little bit of a problem there. So it's going to be a process, Louis. It's going to be not straightforward because Maryland won't let it be straightforward.
Thank you so much for your service to Infomark for our plant and all the things that you do. We appreciate that.
Thank
you.
This is a really good partnership, and we want to protect it. We want to protect the citizens. We want to protect the assets that are so valuable for Elkton.
Thank you so much, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty, our workshop, there's a couple things. Did you have some? I did actually, our workshop is over, per se, but I wanted to mention that the Elkton Music Hall their grand opening is on Saturday night. They're trying to have a sellout crowd for their first evening. And I believe that anything that we can do on the town's part, I want bodies there. And I would say to any town employee that would like to have a ticket to go Saturday night to the Elkton Music Hall, our board is supportive of buying them a ticket. So if you're interested in going and you're a town employee, we're happy to send you. I think they're about 50 tickets short of selling out. So it's supposed to be a good band. I don't know much about them. But any town employee that wants it, means it's going to be a great crowd in downtown Elkton for their first night. So if you want any tickets, contact Michelle. I'm going to look at Michelle there. And is that okay?
Do I get commission?
Yes. Do you know how to do it? I don't know how to work the gadget there. Yeah, there you go. She gets it. So I'd like for everyone, for any town employee that might be looking at later, I'd love for them to hear that we'd love to send them to the event. There's also a magic show on Thursday night, which is tomorrow night at Mixed Crab House. I'm going to go to our first magic show in Elkton. It's been well advertised. I don't know if anyone's been to any of the magic shows.
I have been.
I've heard it's world class. It's world class magic here in Elkton, and I think if you get a chance, go to that event. I'm not buying your ticket for that one. I had up here to have a closed meeting today, but I think because we took a pretty long time here today, and I think we're a little staggering, and what it was going to be in regards to was actually to talk a little bit about the unionization, but I think everyone's got the cards on the table here now. Maybe at the next meeting we can report back if the options are to give them the easy route or give them the long route. And so that's kind of where it's at. Anyone else have anything to say? Meeting adjourned.